Welcome to the Honest Hour. I'm your host, Luis Acevedo, and we got a good one for you today. Um, let's just make sure everything's going well here. Yep, we got good sound. Audio's working. Mic is good. So, yeah, guys. Might catch me in and out here. One of my daughters, she's not feeling well this morning. So I may need to help my wife out with that periodically. She's threw up a couple times. It's unfortunate. Never cool seeing your child, sick. But hopefully she'll be better soon. But yeah, so I might be in and out because of that. But yeah, the first couple things that I really wanted to talk about is the breaking up of the United States. And I think that we see this with the governor in Florida, Ron DeSantis, with his move, and also Carrie Lake with her rhetoric she was using during the speech she gave at a Trump rally. And by the way, she should not be the governor. Didn't Tate get kicked off a TV show for hitting a woman with a belt? I don't know. I think that that's false. But yeah, DeSantis 2024. I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's going to be any better than Trump. But yeah, let's look into this article a little bit. That is going over what Ron DeSantis did to a state attorney in Florida. What if the group is wrong and immoral? Well, that then calls for your discernment. But individuals, I can use the same argument for individualism as well. What if the individuals are wrong and immoral? Who should have control over the group? I mean, the individual, the group, right? There needs to be something that you need to do to stop those immoral, wrong individuals. So, anyway, we'll jump into groupthink and all that stuff. But yeah, so DeSantis had sent allegedly cops to physically remove and suspend a state attorney in Florida because he refused to criminalize abortions. And he was basically stating that, Florida, we have the power to remove judges that are not following the law, not keeping their oath. And he had quoted basically the suspension was for picking and choosing which laws to enforce. Individuals will be less influential than a group mind. Yeah, exactly. So that's why the group mind is more important than the individual mind, because you can get more done with the group mind. You can't have any business without groupthink. You can't have any country without groupthink. You can't have any plumbing without groupthink. You can't have any electricity without groupthink. You can't have any order without groupthink. Groupthink is far superior to individualism. That doesn't mean individualism isn't good. We just have this incorrect notion in our world today. For instance, what Ron DeSantis did was groupthink. He was following the group. Yeah, that's exactly right. I know. So he refused, this state attorney refused to follow the laws, to enforce the laws. He was following a set of groupthink. DeSantis, following a set of groupthink as well, said, yo, you got to get out of here, buddy. And so now you have Susan Lopez as his replacement during the suspension. People can have things in common while still remaining individual. I don't think you understand what groupthink means. I don't think you understand what collectivism means. It doesn't mean that you can't have individuality. It doesn't mean that you can't have a personality. But you have a shared group. You have a shared goal in mind in order to accomplish things. So it's based off of individual freedom. It's in the Constitution. Yeah, it's a groupthink constitution. A group of people got together and wrote it. So DeSantis doing that was pretty interesting. We got somebody that wants to hop in here. We'll let them hop in. So yeah, we'll be covering the topics intermittently. But yeah, that's what's going on in Florida. What's going on, man?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
It feels like you don't know what groupthink is. I mean, if you look at the definition, it's talking about basically discouraging creativity, discouraging the idea of individuals thinking at all. So it's the idea that, whatever the majority thinks, that's what everybody should think. And if you don't think that, you're wrong.
Yeah, so groupthink is required to have any functional society. It is. In order to have laws, you need to have a set of groupthink. You have to. It's required. You can't have a nation without groupthink. There are a certain group, no matter how individualist you may feel, you are still involved in some group which you share values with, and that you will give up your own individuality to bring in a greater good. Everybody has this innate desire within them because we know that communities are better than being fragmented as an individual. Can groupthink go awry? Of course, it can go wrong. Nobody's claiming that it is perfect, without fault. We're humans. We make mistakes. We can be corrupted. But overall, groupthink is far superior than individualism because with groupthink, you can actually accomplish a lot. With individualism, you can't accomplish anything because then you're going to be butting heads on who's right, who's wrong. Whereas if you have a shared goal, like the Carolina Panthers, for example. I'm not even a big football player, or football fan rather. I don't even watch sports. But the Carolina Panthers, if they're still a thing, they have groupthink, right? Nobody can go in there wearing another jersey on the team. They're sharing a collective goal to accomplish things.
Sure, but talking about teams, it gets away from specifically what I'm trying to talk about, which is more like society.
I know, which is what I brought up initially. I brought up you can't have societies without it.
Yes, but again, when you're talking about groupthink in that scenario, in those situations, like you're replacing teamwork and community and basically agreeing on some things, because agreeing on some things and not having to agree on everything, that's exactly how the Constitution was created. That doesn't mean that you have to agree on everything. And again, the idea of behind groupthink is essentially suppressing individual thought. And when you start talking about the great atrocities that have happened in the history of humankind, the worst atrocities, that was the ultimate, the ideal version of groupthink almost, where you have the majority of people that are in control agreeing that you need to suppress any individual thoughts, any individual ideas. And so with individualism, the idea is, hey, you can think for yourself, but we can also come together and agree on some things and agree on the way society should be, and start to, like you said, put laws in. That's not necessarily groupthink. Groupthink is more like this.
It is. It becomes groupthink.
Not according to the definition, because again,
it becomes groupthink, and I'll explain it to you. Yeah, I'll explain it to you. So I have the definition right here as well, so everybody knows. It says the practice of thinking or making a decision as a group in a way that discourages creativity or individual responsibility. So,
right.
Yes. So if you are individuals, right, and let's say you have creative thinking, and you are coming up with some plans, you are then going to suppress your individuality to work together as a group to establish rules and laws. And then you're going to establish police departments, which police departments have groupthink because they have to abide by the law. They can't be individuals. They can't go and be creative on their law. They can't do that. The police have to be in groupthink or else you don't have functional law enforcement. The government as well has to have some form of groupthink in order to have functional governing. In order to have a community that's, civil, you need to give up some of your individuality and your creativity and submit to the group for a better good. So once again, I'm not saying individuality is bad. These two complement each other. My whole point bringing this up is that we are demonizing groupthink so much, but there's a flip side to groupthink that nobody wants to talk about, and that's the good side of groupthink. Not everything is good or bad. Okay, there are some things that are strictly evil, but good think is not strictly evil. Groupthink rather could be both. That's my whole point. I'm not saying individuality is not good. I'm a very individualist person myself. However, I understand the need for groupthink, and that's all I'm sharing here.
Okay. See, but the problem is that it says it's better than
It
individualism.
is, because
And
you
again,
can actually accomplish more with groupthink. That's my point. You can't
But
have a
you're-
functional. You can't have
okay,
a
but you're
functional.
labeling something. Okay, but you're labeling something groupthink that normally people don't label as groupthink. They label it as, like I said,
I
coming
know.
together.
I know, because
and
they're
teamwork.
I know, because that's what I'm trying to do here is open minds that it's not always bad. It can be
Sure,
bad.
but let's
It
talk,
can be
let's go with
destructive.
let's go with that individual responsibility piece. If there are laws in place or things in place that war crimes is the biggest thing, right? Back in the day,
Mhm.
that's one of the biggest trials was with the Yahtzees, and one of the people in charge was doing exactly this whole group, hiding behind groupthink, saying, you know what? I was just following orders. Okay.
Yep.
I don't have individual responsibility because hashtag groupthink. And that was not a good enough defense for him to get, for him to pay for his crimes, because the individual is also responsible for their actions. And so I understand what you're saying. Now that I talked to you a little bit, I just don't agree that it's necessarily groupthink. I think that
that's fine.
that again, that's
Yeah, that's fine. So that's all I'm hearing. And I know it's going to trigger some people, and that's the point of it. So that way we can have these conversations, because it's not all bad. It isn't. I agree with what you're saying. They can be, I've already stated, it can be used for horrible things, but you need groupthink in order to create functional societies. Everybody will, I'll say this, 99, probably 95% of the population will fall into a groupthink way of life. That's just the way it is. And it's good that they do that, because that way you have order, they're predictable, it makes sense. It's easy to govern. You can have functional societies. Can they be manipulated and taken totally the wrong way, as you just described? Of course. And then if they are fallen in groupthink, can they then deflect individual responsibility? Of course they can. Of course they can. But it's not all bad.
Okay, so your argument, though, is that anytime more than one person comes together and creates something good because they agree, oh, this needs to be created, then that's groupthink.
No, my argument is that anytime people come together and suppress once they have a shared goal, they will suppress their individuality and their, not even necessarily creativity. I don't think that that's necessarily true. I don't agree with that, because you need to have creativity in order to establish groupthink to begin with. So I think that there's a little misleading in that definition. But you will have to suppress the individual. You would have to suppress yourself, for the betterment of the group. And I think that that's a good thing in most cases. Can it be dangerous? Yes. But overall, we see it working pretty well in most societies. For example, one example I can give you that I didn't agree with was during the whole cough and sniffle debacle. Everybody went with groupthink on that. I thought that was totally bad. So yeah, I can give examples of it being bad, but the founding fathers got together, established a constitution that would imbue groupthink in the society, so that way they would abide by this framework and then can build from there, which are now people like you and I. So it's not always bad. That's my point. My whole argument basically is that you can't have a functional society with hyper individualism. You have to suppress your individualism for groupthink and instances to make the society a functional and better place than it would be if you just had hyper individuality.
Okay. And I don't see anything about, it's the idea of groupthink and individualism does not specifically just apply to laws, though. Okay. And society.
I know. I've already used the football analogy. I mean, we can keep going back and forth on this.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay. I see what you're saying, and I can understand where you're coming from. I just think in general terms, people do not agree on, just the specific definition or the frame of mind that you're having. And the idea behind groupthink normally is, again, just suppressing any voices that do not agree. Not so much, hey, let's not think about my individual self here, and let's figure out what's best for the community or what's best for the group. Like, that's not what really people think when they think groupthink, and that's kind of not what I'm getting from the definition myself. So, and I think a lot of people in the comments are feeling the same way. But
yeah,
hey,
that's cool.
Thanks for talking to me.
Yeah.
It was nice having a chat with you.
Yeah, likewise, man. All right. Got somebody else that wants to hop in here. Hey, what's going on? Can you hear me? Yeah, what's going on, man?
Not much. Just was scrolling past lives and I came across yours and saw you talking about groupthink is better than individualism. So
yes,
collectivism has caused over 100 million deaths in the 20th century alone. So, for example, the Nazis were collectivists. The Soviet Union was collectivist as well too.
Mm-hmm.
China collectivist. So how can you go and you say that groupthink is better than individualism, right? So like,
yeah,
how can you say that when we have just an example in recent history? So within a span of between 1900 to 2000, we had 100 million people that were wiped out of existence through groupthink.
Yeah, so you do need groupthink in order to have a functional police department, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're
So
inherently
so right there,
you're equating.
So right there is a form of good groupthink.
Okay.
Right there is a form of good groupthink. Can it be taken bad? Of course.
Yeah, but you're misinterpreting like collectivism. That would be
No.
So like if you have a group of individuals.
We're not talking about collectivism. This is groupthink.
Yeah, but that's not when we're talking about groupthink in the definition. We're not talking about police officers acting as individuals coming together to work for a common goal.
Yeah, we are. Their goal is to enforce the law and protect the system. Groupthink, yes, I'm telling you what I'm meaning by groupthink. We can apply the definition to what groupthink is.
The misunderstanding of
No, groupthink is basically saying you suppress your individuality for a common goal. That's essentially it.
Okay, so who dictates that goal?
Well, the laws are written by the legislative branch, and the people can have a say in the laws that they want to be enforced or not enforced. So it is, in our system, sort of a shared responsibility. But after the laws are enforced, it's up to the police department and the executive branch to share same groupthink in order to enforce said laws. And then the people probably will then fall under the same groupthink to follow said laws because they think it's going to keep society together. So let's say me as an individual, I want to go 65. Let's say as an individual, I want to drive 65 miles an hour in a 35 mile an hour zone, right? Well, now I have to suppress my individuality, my thinking that, hey, I know I can handle this road at 65 miles an hour, but the establishment.
That's not socialism.
I'm not talking about socialism. I'm not talking about collectivism. I'm talking about groupthink.
You're using an example of speeding as individuality.
Yes, I'm telling you that you can go 70 miles an hour on a side street that says 25 miles an hour because you as an individual believe you can handle it.
Fundamental misunderstanding of collectivism and individualism.
I'm talking about groupthink once again.
Yeah, you have a fundamental misunderstanding of collectivism and individualism. You're trying to equate it to a police force working together. And also, too, just to poke a hole in your example real quick, too, it's like groupthink in a police force. An example of it would so a good police force would be a group of individuals acting towards a common goal, right? So a collectivist police force would be, for example, like you have in China, you have people like, acting towards a common goal, right? Welding people in their house shut, right? Beating them in the streets.
You're looking at a bad side of it, and I'm showing you that there can be good sides to it. That's the whole point, is that there's a flip side most do not want to acknowledge because they're triggered by groupthink. They're triggered by the word because they think that they're above groupthink, when in reality, you fall into a category of groupthink and you don't even realize it.
So why? No, I don't. So why can't you
I know
think
you
for
don't
yourself?
believe that. You can think for yourself. I'm for individuality as well. They can complement each other, actually.
Since I fall into a category of groupthink, which group thinks for me?
I don't know, but I'm telling you that in your life, there is some times where if you have a family, you're going to maybe suppress your individuality for the greater good of your family. It is because you will suppress and discourage any dissent from the group. For example, my family, we have the same shared values.
Stop. You're literally
this is exactly right.
Argument that you're making right here. This isn't like you're literally bridging off the definition of what collectivism and groupthink is to try and make your point here. Which I'm
extrapolating. I'm extrapolating from that definition and then showing that it's not totally bad. That's all.
Irrelevant.
No, it's not irrelevant. It's actually very relevant to the conversation. Okay, so let me ask you this. You're saying groupthink is totally bad because China, Russia, all of these places have used groupthink, and they've done very bad things because of groupthink, because people did not stand up in dissent from the groupthink, right? Because they were told to weld people shut in there, right? So you had some people, maybe police forces, maybe doctors, whatever it was, that came together, welded doors shut so people could not exit. So that's a form of groupthink, and people bought into that form of groupthink. I'm telling you, there's a flip side of it as well, and you're not following that. There's a flip side that actually could be used for good.
That's not called a groupthink, dude. You're trying to use the definition in a non-usable way.
No, okay, so I'll tell you the definition of the word right now, and I'm using it exactly how it should be. So the practice of thinking or making a decision as a group in a way that discourages creativity or individual responsibility. So there are times when you suppress, as I've been strictly stating, your individuality, your creativity, in order to work for the betterment of the group, where you no longer matter and the group has taken precedence over you.
Here's the problem with that you can't see is the statement, the betterment of the group, right?
Yes, and you need a better group.
Hold on. Let me make this statement real quick. Ready? So the betterment of the group in itself is the problem. That statement in itself is who is deciding the betterment of the group. You can laugh all you want, but I mean, over 100 million people died because of this. You can laugh that you're falling for the same shit that the Nazis fell for. Like, literally, it's comical.
No, what's comical is you don't understand there's a flip side.
Because, no, dude, okay, so listen. So,
you don't understand there's a flip side to this, my man.
You're telling me I don't understand when you're arguing for collectivism, really, for groups.
Yes, you need it. You need it.
Do I need somebody to
you need it, bro.
Hold on. Can I finish speaking real quick? Do I need somebody to tell me how to understand the world? Is that what it is? I don't understand because your hive mind knows everything. So explain to me. Ready? Okay. So the problem with individualism versus collectivism, right? Is so the greater good, right? Can you point to me the greater good of society, right? The greater good of society, it's called the fallacy of misplaced concreteness. You cannot point to me where society is. You cannot point to me the greater good of society, because society is not a living, breathing being. It is an abstraction.
Yep.
Society is a concept. Society itself does not exist, right?
Yep. And who makes society?
How do you go and you point?
Who makes society?
Okay, so hold on. Let me just finish. I'm wrapping this up right now. So then how can you go and you say that, working towards the greater good of society when society doesn't exist as compared to a living, breathing creature and being of, divine nature, right?
All right. So I am a man of God. I'm a Christian. And there are certain things that I don't fully understand in the Christian faith. But as opposed to rebelling and trying to be an individual in my belief, I'm going to say there are people that have lifetimes of expertise in this. It also doesn't mean that I can't explore these thoughts. I can't question these thoughts. I can't, it doesn't mean any of that. But what it does mean is that I'm not going to cause disorder in the church because I don't understand things. I'm going to submit to the groupthink inside of the church when I don't understand things fully in that particular context. All right. Now, and another thing is that I'm not against individualism. I think individualism can be a beautiful thing. However, the issue is hyper-individualism causes anarchy. And anarchy is good for no one. You need a form of groupthink in order to have any governing whatsoever. People need to get together collectively and saying, hey, these are the rules. We don't care what you feel about them. These are what it's going to be.
Collectively as individuals.
And then you're coming together for a shared goal, giving up your individuality to a certain degree, not completely, but to a certain degree to establish something. You're willing to say, I will no longer do X to be accepted into the group. This is very easy to understand. And then also, I am totally with you that it can be used horribly. It very well can. Nobody's saying that groupthink is perfect. My point here is you need a form of groupthink. You need a type of groupthink in order to make TikTok. You need a form of groupthink in order to have the internet. You need a form of groupthink to have Facebook, MySpace, YouTube, Netflix, a car, a house. You need a form of groupthink.
You're misrepresenting groupthink and the concept as
no, I'm not. So a house, you cannot go off doing whatever the hell you want to do to build the house.
Together, that's not groupthink.
It is. You are suppressing your creativity, your individuality to say, guess what? These are the blueprints the boss man gave us. We are now worker bees. We get the house done as the blueprint states. No deviation, no independent thought. You do this as it says. Building the house would fall down if you had rampant individuality. It does not work to build things up that are functional. Can you be an individual outside of these things? Of course. And I'm for that. I love to see people, in a moral sense, if they're being themselves, that's awesome. I don't like to see people that are sheeple. I don't. But there is an important time for groupthink.
Right.
And cooperation does require a form of groupthink.
You don't understand groupthink. You don't understand collectivism and individualism.
I do very much so. And that's why I'm explaining to you the two sides of it. That individualism can be a beautiful thing, right? I'm an artist, so I like to write. I love to write music. So I'm bringing out my individuality in that sense and my creativity in that sense. But in as far as, once again, society, my man, there's certain things that I'll give up my individuality for society. I'd rather be a functional member in society because we need each other in order to live. We can't live on our own.
Okay, so can I ask, can you define a functioning society?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, where I live, we have a functional local community. We have paved roads. We have order on our streets. There's very low crime.
No,
I'm telling you right now, I'm giving you the examples of a functional society.
Like the perfect society.
I don't know what the perfect society would be. I mean, the perfect because okay. So I know what you're trying to get me at here, and I'm far from a commie because I will say this: that everywhere you go, there will be. So everywhere you go, there will be chaos. There will be insanity. There will be evil. There will be all of these things. There will be danger. Of course. I'm not saying that the perfect society can even exist here. Once again, I'm a man of God, so I understand that humanity is fallen and that there's evil in the world. which is also why I'm saying that groupthink could combat certain evils. They can.
You could be a Christian without falling for collectivism, right?
Do you know that you can't combat evil without collectivism?
So also, too, you do know that collectivism has slaughtered Christians before.
Yes,
right?
and you do know, and you do know,
very much.
yes, and you do know that civilizations are built upon collectivism. You have to.
No, they're built off individualism.
You don't understand the definitions, and that's okay, man. But that's okay. We can agree to disagree. There is literally a good side to groupthink and collectivism. There is. There factually is. Can it be bad? Yes, it can be bad. But you're just triggered. You're very sensitive to the words collectivism and groupthink because you have been taught about communism, and so now you associate all groupthink and collectivism with the atrocities of communism and the atrocities of fascism, when in reality you do need groupthink in order to have any functional society.
Can you go read me the definition of collectivism real quick?
We're not even talking about collectivism. We're talking about groupthink once again.
Okay,
but
groupthink is collectivism, and you also said groupthink is better than individualism.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so we can go and we can deduce collectivism and groupthink together, right?
Well, no, because collectivism, you could say because look, I just looked up the definition of collectivism, and so it says done by people acting as a group. So it sounds like you're for collectivism.
Read the full definition. I'm not.
I just did.
Read the full definition.
I just did.
Can you reread it?
Done by people acting as a group.
That's the fucking full definition. Are you retarded? Can you read it? The full definition.
I just did for you. Literally,
from top to bottom.
A collect protest is done by a group of acting people, done by people acting as a group. And then, if we want to go to collectivism, it is the practice or principle of giving group priority over each individual in it. So once again, you can use collective. You can use collective, same thing, done by people acting as a group. That means that you're suppressing your individuality. Same thing. So it's a little bit different than groupthink, but it is similar. And so you need those things in order to get shit done as a team.
Do shit on your own.
Good luck trying to build a society, bro. Good luck trying to build a family on your own. Good luck trying to feed yourself on your own. You need your local farmer. You need your supply chains. You're dependent on big block stores that require groupthink.
What does that farmer fucking go and receive wages from?
He receives wages from people giving him money to do that. And then people give up their autonomy to go work for said farmer to produce food.
Okay, and what determines those wages, right?
We are no longer in the same ballpark anymore. We have now switched into economies. I'm talking on a societal level. You need groupthink. You need collectivism in order to build functional societies. You can't have a constitution without an established groupthink.
You are the God. I cannot stand people like you.
Then you're out of here. Okay, you can't stand me. That's cool. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. A bit tired, just woke up. Just
right on.
Came across your live. We're talking about Andrew Tate.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the topics we could talk about, yeah.
You say he's Agent Smith and not Morpheus, so
yeah.
I guess you don't really like him.
Actually, I think that he's really funny. I think that he says some good things, but overall, whether he realizes it or not, I believe he's controlled opposition. I believe he's a gatekeeper. So I think that he spits some truth. I really do. Like, I agree with him on the gender roles. I agree with him on his motivational speeches to men to get up and do hard things, to be disciplined, to keep your word. There's a lot of things I agree with him on, but there's also a few things that, I think people should be aware of, that he's not really helping out society as they think he is. He's making men more materialistic. He promotes promiscuity, and he says that God is an idea, and God is more than an idea. If God is an idea, well, then God can be whatever you want it to be. So, and I also think that he is somewhat of a disruptor for the Islamic faith, because he's been promoting the Islamic faith for quite some time. But he's also stated that people that follow the Islamic faith or the Christian faith to a T would take us back into ancient days, and that would be bad per him. So any true Christian or true Muslim isn't really good in his view. The only time Islam is good in his view is because, you can have 4 wives. But in Christianity, you can also have multiple wives, which is another thing that I also agree with him on. I'm not saying I disagree there either. I'm just saying that I believe that he is a gatekeeper and he's controlled op. And it's not even like he knows it. I'm not even saying that he knows it.
Right. I can see where you're coming from, but the reason I don't see him as a controlled opposition is because he is speaking out against the Matrix. This is one thing that controlled opposition will never do.
No, he's
they
not.
Will never speak out against the Matrix and expose the Matrix. That is what he's done.
He's not actually. He's promoting people to be enslaved by joining another type of rat race, and that other type of rat race is to. And don't get me wrong, I own my own business. I like money. I like to make money. So I get that. However, it is a form of rat race to want, because to get outside of the Matrix, you then realize that you don't need money for survival. You don't need money for a better life. You really, all you need is to be extremely self-sufficient in a good community. The tribal people that live off the land are the ones that are truly out of the Matrix. Andrew Tate is not out of the Matrix. He is deep within the Matrix, and he's trying to shift the order in the Matrix so that way he's in control of said Matrix.
I disagree there, because I think Andrew Tate has come back into the Matrix like Morpheus to wake people up. I can tell you.
What does waking people up do? Waking people up, though, does nothing, because if you wake people up,
it exposes the Matrix.
Well, it does nothing because you need an alternative to it. So if you're not providing a solution to the Matrix, what you're then doing is waking people up to the Matrix, and then you're saying, guess what? I'm going to establish a new order in the Matrix, which is what he's trying to do with the War Room. He says that he wants the War Room to be the new Illuminati. So he's effectively trying to take over the Matrix and be in control of it.
I would rather have him in charge than the people that are in charge now.
I'm sorry?
I would much rather have him or his War Room or whatever he calls it as in charge of the Matrix than the people that are now. Because the people that are now do not have our best interest in mind. They're evil, and they do evil things. It depends on how much you've looked into this subject.
Yep.
But ultimately, it's a terrifying realization. We're lied to about everything. Propaganda is everywhere. And we are debt slaves to the Matrix.
Yeah, and he's promoting that.
But he's exposed that. Most people don't even know about this. Right.
A lot of people actually know about this now, so he's doing nothing new.
Because of people like him.
No, I mean he's kind of late to the game, man. Alex Jones was doing this long before him, and Alex Jones is controlled op. Alex Jones could be controlled up, but so therefore, if Alex Jones can be controlled op, by your own logic, Andrew Tate can be controlled op.
He could be. I don't believe he is, and I don't believe Alex Jones is. That's why I believe Alex Jones is so heavily slated in the media. I believe anyone that gets slated in the media, like Alex Jones or Trump or Andrew Tate, they are speaking truth, because the media is pure lies. The mainstream media is lies.
Yes.
And that's something we all need to come to grips with. If you see something on the mainstream media, you take it with a grain of salt, no matter what it is. Okay?
Yes, I'm with you. I'm with you that the mainstream media is full of deception. But I'm also saying that I've caught, Andrew Tate has lied in his podcast as well. He's changed up stories before as well. He admits that he lies to women so that way he can sleep with them.
I mean, I don't agree.
He does. I've watched one of his courses. One of his courses says that if you work at Starbucks and you're a barista, You now tell her that you're a secret spy for Starbucks, secretly employing people. And then when she asks where your money's at, this is word for word, by the way. When she asks you where your money's at, you're paying for your dying cousin's treatment for cancer.
Yeah.
So therefore, you have no money. So he encourages lying. So
Yeah,
the
he
same
encourages
reason why
lying,
you don't
that's
like the
gonna benefit
mainstream
him,
media,
you know.
you can also apply to Andrew Tate. And once again, there are certain qualities I appreciate about Andrew Tate. But
Yeah.
he is trying to create, word for word, a new Illuminati to take over the Matrix.
Well, he says that. I've heard him say that. But one, I think he is, he's using hyperbole. He doesn't actually think he's going to take over the world.
I think that he does
think
believe that.
His idea is he's trying to wake people up, get people into this war room where people become rich, independent, free thinkers, and that is very dangerous for the Matrix. If you get the younger generation thinking against the Matrix, that is how you destroy the Matrix, right?
You're not destroying it. You're creating a new one. That's what you're not understanding. Is that if you destroy it, a vacuum. So you know what happens, right? In a cartel, right? In a cartel, you take out the leader of the cartel. What happens? There's a power vacuum, right?
Yeah, it's a power struggle.
So exactly, that will be the same thing that happens if you do that with the current elite. There will be a power vacuum.
Of course there will.
And then who's going to fill it? You can say this. This is what's going to happen. You have to understand that what we're talking about here is cyclical. All right? So let's say homeboy Andrew Tate becomes the new control. Him and his war room become the new Illuminati. They're living behind the ice wall in their own private island that nobody even knows exists because they found the hidden land. They've hidden. They've went beyond the ice wall. They went into hidden land, and now they're controlling from far.
Are you sarcastic, or do you actually know about that?
I mean, it could be true. I don't know if the Earth is flat or not. So, anyway, but that is a theory that the Illuminati are beyond the ice wall. They're not in the same area as we are. Anyway, so they're now beyond the ice wall, and what's going to happen is maybe one generation, things are going great. The second generation, things are going great. 5 generations deep, next thing you know, you're going to have your great-great-grandson complaining about the Matrix the same way that you are.
If it's not set up correctly, I agree.
It will always fail because man fails.
I disagree. I really disagree.
No, when has there ever been a society that's lasted forever? Never. You can't find one. They always fall.
Yeah, because I think it works in cycles, but I think society can be fair, just, everyone's wealthy. This land was made for everyone to be wealthy. No one should be poor or starving. That is purely a direct consequence of the current matrix we live in and the leaders of this matrix.
I agree. And you know how you can get outside of the matrix? Start a homestead. Boom.
I think garnering a lot of money
start a homestead and be active in your local government.
That doesn't get you out of the matrix.
It does.
The matrix. The fact that you're still dealing with the government implies you are dealing with the matrix.
Andrew Tate literally says that you have to be on multiple grids. So therefore, he's dealing with the government more so than you or I are right now. He buys off. He buys off politicians and police forces because he lives in a very corrupt state. Which I don't have anything against him for doing that. I'm just stating that he still deals with the government. He still deals with them. You will always deal with them.
I'm not saying he's fully, broken out, but way more so than others. And the best way to break out of the matrix, it's funny because anyone can do it, is you simply have to acknowledge that it's there and that this is what's going on. That is step 1 to breaking out of the matrix.
Then what's step 2?
Step 2, you can do what Andrew Tate did, garner a lot of money. That is also a very good boost to escape, what you call the rat race.
How do you get a lot of money?
The matrix, not becoming a debt slave for your whole life.
How do you get a lot of money?
Yeah, and obviously that's a lot harder than step 1.
No, but how do you get a lot of money? How do you get a lot of money?
Well, people do it, right?
But how do you get it? How do you get a lot of money? What is the method to getting a lot of money?
You have to understand how money works, and you have to find your own way to make money. It's hard. There is no one answer to that. There is no one answer.
Yeah, fair. There isn't a one answer.
Say, just go get money, bro. Like, obviously, no. It's a lot harder than that.
So you have to work within the matrix to get out of the matrix.
Absolutely. You got to play the game.
So you're still in the
Just
Matrix.
like-
You
just-
never escape it. That's my point. You never escape it. So Andrew Tate is
I
an
know, but
Agent
that's why I
Smith.
said-
He's
I
not
said
Morpheus
you
because
never
he isn't
fully
outside.
escape it
You
until everyone
yourself,
breaks down the Matrix.
you yourself have already admitted that Andrew Tate isn't fully out of the Matrix. Therefore, he
I know
can't
so.
be Morpheus. Therefore, he is an Agent
But
Smith.
Morpheus was never fully out of the Matrix, was he?
What was that?
Was Morpheus ever fully out of the Matrix?
Yeah, he was actually. They were out of the
So why did he
simulation
go back in? Why did he go back in?
because they could.
Because he wanted to wake people up. And he wanted to free
Yeah, but
minds,
what does
and he
waking
wanted
people
to
up
take
do?
down
Waking
the
people up,
Matrix.
waking people up doesn't do any good. And if you take down the Matrix, you're just going to have to make a new Matrix.
Right, and you've got this idea where you're defending the current Matrix because you think, oh, well, we'll just have to do a new one and it will just be as worse. That's a very pessimistic idea.
No,
And I
no,
don't think
it's
we can
very
have a Matrix
realistic.
that is as bad as this one.
It's very
I don't think we truly
realistic.
grasp how bad this is.
No, it's very realistic. And trust me, I've been down the rabbit hole for many years, my friend. We can talk about the small hats and big nose and how they own most of the financial system. Andrew Tate never talks about them, does he? Never once have I heard him say that. Never once have I heard
Because
Andrew
there are some
Tate.
things-
Never once have I
there are
heard
some
Andrew
things-
Tate speak out against the Pride movement and call it immoral and wrong. Never once heard him say that. That's a part of the Matrix. Never once heard Andrew Tate say
Well, no,
that
he
you
has
need a
actually
homestead
spoken
and
out
have a
against the Pride
farm.
movement.
I'm sorry.
He actually did speak out against the Pride movement.
Yeah,
I've
but
heard
he
him
said
speak
that
against
you
it.
can do what you want. He said that you can go
Yeah,
ahead
he
and
says-
chop your thing off, but just don't teach it to my kid. You have the right to
That's
do
true.
that as an individual. Wrong. You shouldn't want that in your society. I don't want that in my society. To want that in your society is to be a part of the Matrix, because that's exactly what the society wants.
No, anyone can do whatever they want. The idea of the Matrix is passing on ideas to other people that they have to follow, that they don't want to do. Anyone can go and chop their thing off. I don't care. Most people will agree with this, okay? If you personally don't like that, that's fine. You're allowed to not like that. And
Yes.
you're allowed to speak out against that. But you cannot stop said person from doing it.
But
like
you
they
can
cannot
stop
force
those
you to
people
do
from
it.
being in your society, and you can discourage it. It's not the good thing to
Of
do.
course.
And he does, and he says that he has no problem with it. He says that it doesn't think that it's wrong. So he's effectively inside of the Matrix, following the propaganda in ways that
Because
most
he's trying
people.
to wake people up. And one of the hardest ways of waking people up is when you start, if you start talking about certain things, certain topics, this Matrix has very heavily guarded. People will jump to defend these topics, say, you're wrong, you're a crazy conspiracy, you're insulting, you're disgusting. You can't
Yep.
talk about certain things. So he knows that. If he got on live and started talking about flat Earth, oh my God, everyone would stop.
So he's
following.
controlled op, bro. He's controlled op whether he sees it or not, because there's certain things he won't talk about. He's a gatekeeper.
No,
He-
but
he
no,
won't-
no, no, no.
he's a
He
gatekeeper.
won't talk about it because he knows the strategy to win. Okay, so you said you've been down the rabbit hole. If you had a friend, right, that had looked into none of this, would you immediately start talking about the flat Earth and the small nose, big hats?
I
guys?
wouldn't
No,
even talk
because
to
they're
them
very
about it.
sensitive
I wouldn't
topics.
even talk to them about it. If they had questions, we would discuss it. If there were no questions, doesn't matter. It doesn't. Because
That's
waking
fine.
people
Fine,
up
fine.
doesn't really help them, actually. It makes them fearful. It makes them afraid of the world. It makes them angry. It makes
It
them
does help.
wrathful. So the best thing to do, in my opinion, because I've dealt with this all my life, been ahead of the curve on so many things, been aware of so many things before many people, before the mainstream media. I mean, I was in middle school when I knew about the whole September thing. And I knew that was all a sham. The whole thing that happens in September
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
Like middle school. I've had this discernment my whole life. It's something that I've just been, I don't know if it's a gift or a curse, what, but it's something that I've had with me pretty much my entire life. And one thing that I've learned throughout my entire life is that people don't want to be woken up. If they want to be woken up, they will find the information they want. So trying to wake people up doesn't help, actually. It doesn't. It causes more problems.
I totally see where you're coming from. I totally understand. And it's not a nice thing to do. I've done it before. I've told someone something, you can see their brain like go into overload. They don't want to accept it. I agree. But to say it's not important, like if everyone woke up to the world that we live in, it would change overnight
No, it wouldn't.
for the better.
No, it wouldn't. Have you ever heard of elite theory? Elite theory is basically where there's a small group of people that are facilitating all the protest that you've ever seen, all the rebellion you've ever seen for their good. So anytime you see a current elite being replaced, it's because there's another elite taking their spot. Never once in history.
I agree with that, but I'm saying
Never once in history have you
slave
seen
woke up to the fact that they're a debt slave. The world would change overnight. If they woke up to all the evil that these powers that be, they would wake up like, what's going on? We are the masses.
You're wrong.
History has taught us that the masses have the power.
You're 100% wrong. Do you know what happened during the whole cough and sniffle debacle? Everybody complied. Everybody complied to the whole cough and sniffle debacle.
Yes, because people were asleep.
But then people woke up during it as well, and they still got
the
pokies. They still wore the face diapers. They still did it even after they woke up. Nobody stood up as you claimed they would once they woke up.
I know, because you have to wake up, and I can guarantee you that if they did this again, which I think they're gonna do, right, with this new monkey thing. If they do that again, do you not think there would be a different reception even now? People are still asleep. There's still more people asleep, don't get me wrong, but there are way more people awake. That's the thing about this recent cough and sniffle. So many people have woken up because of it, all right? So I think it's one of those that, yes, if the majority are still asleep, it doesn't do any good waking up another person, waking up your friend. It doesn't do any good. It only does them harm because, yes, this is scary. But if everyone wakes up to this, it all ends. It doesn't. A game. It's like a game of Monopoly, and we are the ones keeping it going, right?
That's a fantasy that is never that is a fantasy that has never come to fruition. Never once.
I know, but it's hopeful, right? So what's your alternative?
My alternative.
Alternatives all the time. Your alternative. Yeah. Let's just deal with it. Let's just sit in the matrix. There's nothing we can do.
Yeah. So here's my alternative. It's pointless to fight it, unless it is doing something to harm you or your family directly, like forcing pokes on you, trying to get you somewhere. But they never do that, by the way. If you study history, that's never really done. It's always compliance. You need 100% compliance, which is another thing I agree. This is another thing I agree with Andrew Tate. All of these things are compliance. And so once you understand that, you realize that you can just – so a good analogy I like to use, there's a riptide in the ocean. You're being sucked out of it. What do? Do you try to fight against that riptide? Do you try to swim the other way? Or do you swim sideways? You swim sideways to get out of the riptide. So my alternative is to swim sideways, build your own local supply chains, become very self-sufficient as much as you can, and then you would have to deal with very little problems. And this requires high morality. It requires high morality and not very much money. So my solution is more realistic than Andrew Tate's, because most people will not make $1 million. Most people won't become rich enough to travel around the world. Even if you do that, you're still participating inside of the matrix, just at a higher level. So the best way to get yourself out of it, increase your morality, stand with God, truly, not just that God's an idea, but truly know God is real, follow God, submit to his will, and become self-sufficient, become a prominent figure in your community, do things that are good for your community and your family, and that's the alternative.
That's a good alternative, and I agree that's like one of the best things you could do. If you just go out into the wilderness, have a self-sufficient community, that would be amazing, right? The problem is you're still existing in the world where there's still a matrix going on.
But we've already agreed that even Andrew Tate can't escape it. But we even agreed somebody that's super rich can't even escape it. It's inescapable. You're in this world. It's inescapable.
I know, but to get to my point, right, is if you do, your idea of becoming self-sufficient, going off, just living in the wilderness, the matrix is still going on, and one day you're going to die, and then your kids are going to grow up. They might carry it on, they might be self-sufficient, but then they're going to die. And their kids might go, maybe I'm going to go back to this, the rest of the world, which is still going on. And the rest of the world is still going to be fundamentally fucked.
Yeah,
Andrew Tate's
so
idea is he wants to bring all of that down. And I'm saying yours is more realistic.
it doesn't work though. And even if he does that, so we're on the same page. So Andrew Tate does his thing, I do my thing.
Yeah.
Both cyclically over time, they will both collapse over time. That's my point. I'm being very realistic.
Yours will definitely, but his, I couldn't say.
He's not God. He's not God. Therefore, his will fail.
I don't think he's God, and I think you're getting the wrong idea.
No. I'm getting the right idea. You think that he can establish? No, I'm getting the perfect idea. I'm getting the perfect idea of what you think of Andrew Tate, and that is, with his established order, the world would be a much better place, and it would probably last much longer, if not ideally forever, because he's a very smart man, and he'll establish, people to be in control very well.
I don't think he should be in power. And I don't think he thinks that either. I don't think his war room should be. The idea of the war room is to simply take down the powers that be.
And then who replaces them?
The powers that be.
Who replaces them?
Who goes into? Well, that's then when we get to that. I don't think anyone replaces them. The idea of elites running us, that is the problem. This world was given to us to sustain off it forever. There is unlimited resources. No one has to be poor. Everyone can be wealthy and do whatever they want, right?
No, they shouldn't. They should not. Everybody should not do what they want. No. That would be anarchy, bro. You're supporting anarchy. Anarchy never works.
I'm not supporting anarchy.
You are. You just said there should be no controllers. If there's no controllers, then who's the ruler? Who makes the rules?
Controllers. There is only one true ruler, and that is the person that put us here, and the person that made this entire system.
Yes, and the person that put us here, God, established governments. He established controllers on this earth. God did. They're a God-sanctioned thing.
How do you know that?
Well, it says it in the Bible, and also it's quite natural that humans... Well, hang on. So the Bible says it, and additionally, we just see naturally humans form governments very naturally.
I'm not necessarily against the idea of a group of humans getting together and trying to come up with what's best for the world. The actual idea of a government on paper is very good. The problem with the government today is that it is completely controlled by the Matrix, and the government simply allows what the Matrix does to be legal in society. The idea of a good government, great, that's great for sure. But I'm sure you can understand why I'd be hesitant if we did take down this evil elite, for us to then go, okay, let's just do it again. Let's make another government, because we've seen how easily this government's been corrupted. So it's a hard question. Like, what do you do? Do you just let everyone do what they want, go wherever they want on the plane? Who knows?
No, I say that you be realistic and understand and accept the fact that there will always be a governing power over you. You are a small fish in a big sea. There are whales here. You will never become a whale. You will never become a whale. No matter how much money you have, you may become a shark, whatever, but you'll never become a whale. Those whales are the families that have been there for years and years and years and years and years, and they will never, and they will continue, because there are powers much higher than them, called Satan and his minions, that will eventually, because they also have some control over this world, and they will then pull power over whoever gets closest to the most power in the world. And so the most masculine thing to do is to start a family, become more self-sufficient.
But why can't we do that anyway? Why can't we take down the Matrix that be and agree, let's not let anyone get to that kind of power. Let's all
because it's a fantasy. It's a fantasy. I'm an adult. I accept reality for what it is.
I know it's a fantasy right now because it's never happened, but that doesn't make it.
And it never will.
And it definitely doesn't make it wrong. I'm clearly giving the best scenario.
And it never will be the best scenario. It never will be. It's not me being pessimistic. It's me being realistic.
It is.
I am very optimistic. And I think that the future...
Like you don't have faith in God.
I do have faith in God, because ultimately the only time that there will be peace on this earth is when Jesus returns.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe when we bring down the Matrix, Jesus will return.
Yeah, I don't think so. Because we're not the ones to bring it down. We're not the ones to do it, bro. He is, not us.
I think we are, because that's why I think the reason we are waking up is because of that. Why do you think people are waking up to this?
People have been waking up. There have been many great awakenings. This is something that maybe you're not aware of, but there have been many great awakenings throughout history. There have been many great resets throughout history.
Yes,
this isn't the first time.
Into this cycle, this is a great awakening we're experiencing.
Yes, and there have been many other cycles of great awakenings, and they've resulted in the same thing. You can have a renaissance afterwards, where everything is great, beautiful for a few generations, and then
that'll be good though.
And then, within a few generations, things start going on the decline.
Well, maybe that's just the way things be, right?
It is. It's reality.
That doesn't mean we should stop striving for the Renaissance. Even if it means in 3 generations it'll go back to.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all.
If in my lifetime we brought down the Matrix and we all lived in harmony and peace and we're all wealthy,
yeah,
the land.
That's
it'd be very nice, and it is wishful thinking. It's very wishful thinking.
Yeah.
But
so
what can you do? You know, unless you're gonna do what like Andrew Tate does. I think what he's doing is amazing. At the end of the day, he's promoting this idea of anti-establishment, and
which is bad. It's so bad. I'm not anti-establishment at all. I want the police to be able to do their job. I want the government to be functional, because without it, man, it would be a bad world.
Yeah, I don't think you've woken up at all.
No, I don't think you have, my man. I think you're still lost, and that's okay.
You're talking in defense of the government and the establishment.
Yes, I am pro-government.
I think you've controlled opposition.
That's okay. That's okay. Hey, what's going on?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Hey.
Oh, you muted yourself.
An individualism.
I'm sorry.
Give me some examples of some historical examples of where groupthink triumphed over individualism and didn't lead to atrocity?
Yeah, so you don't even need to go historically. I mean, we can just look at TikTok. There's a certain form of...
let's look historically, because history...
Hang on. So, we can start present day, and then we can work our way back historically. And I'm going to preface with this. Just like all things, groupthink can be used very, very badly. We know this historically. We can go back and look at Mao's China, the Cultural Revolution.
Right.
We can go back. We can go back and look at Nazi Germany, groupthink, bad. Good groupthink. Here we go. TikTok. They need to have a functional company, so there's a degree of groupthink in order to have it functioning, so that way we can have this live chat. The webcam I'm using, the technology I'm using, there was groupthink in order to build these things from a company. So those are good forms of groupthink. Also, the police department has a form of groupthink.
Project.
Which
you could say is groupthink, but groupthink is tribalism. Do you think tribalism is a good thing?
Yes.
Okay, why? Because people work together, and that's your idea of groupthink.
No. So you're triggered.
Irving Yannis is an author that has really good books on why groupthink is a detriment.
Yep.
And
I've read his books, Homo Sapiens. Yeah, I've read his books, the Homo Sapiens.
Definition of groupthink really quick?
I've already looked it up many of times.
No, can you pull it up and then say it for the guests?
Yes.
They haven't seen it.
So it is essentially the practice.
No. The definition, the actual definition of groupthink, not essentially.
It is
Pull it up.
It is. You're not telling me what to do on my live. So it is the.
Okay.
It is the practice.
So preface this by saying it's your.
Once again, you're not going to tell me what I can do on my live. All right. So either
this is your definition. Okay, go ahead.
No, this is a summary of the definition. It is the
definition. You can Google it.
You can stop being a triggered boy and listen. Okay.
I'm not triggered.
You are very triggered. Very triggered.
Okay. Sure. Go ahead.
So it is the practice of suppressing individualism and creativity for the group.
Okay. Now, just to humor me, can you pull up the definition from online about the psychological phenomena?
No, I'm not going
No?
to do that.
Okay, then we can't argue based on a definitional fact.
So I
We're
just gave
gonna
you
argue
a
based on your
definition.
definition of it.
No, you can look up the definition and you can see how close my summary of the definition was. If you're that concerned about a definition and you want to make sure that my definition is correct, you can go look it up, because this is going to be going on for about an hour and 10 minutes. And I've gave the definition several times. So I have playback. I have people that are going to be listening to this in the future. So I'm not going to sit here and repeat the definition that was already given at the beginning of this stream several times. That's not good playback value. So if you're really concerned about that, you can go and look at MOT Media on YouTube, and you can hear me read the definition of groupthink. You can hear me read the definition of collectivism. I gave you a summary of what these definitions are. The definitions do matter.
Groupthink is a psychological phenomenon that occurs within a group of people in which the desire for harmony and conformity in the group results in an irrational or dysfunctional decision-making outcome. How is that positive? And then when you look up books on groupthink, hear me out. I'll let you talk for about 5 minutes. When you look up books on groupthink, the first thing that pops up is groupthink, a study in self-delusion. The second one that pops up is victims of groupthink. The other one is groupthink, an impediment to society. The other one is groupthink, pushback. Look up the books for groupthink, and based off of all the literature on it, I mean, it's not a good thing. And it leads to every atrocity we ever have. And you know the expression, sorry. They say the path to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yep.
So you can start out with a groupthink that's very positive.
Yep.
Like, collectivism with like a socialist type setting where everybody's contributing to the community benefit, right? Starts off positive. But due to human nature, the same reason human nature affects socialism and groupthink the same way. It always turns out to be a bad thing in the end. Because as soon as the powers that be in a groupthink, because with the groupthink, they have a leader, don't they? Or no, everybody just thinks the same, right?
Well, there has to be somebody that establishes the thing to think about and to agree to. So there has to be somebody logically giving the general idea to be supported.
Okay, and one person being in charge, one person can't have a change of intentions, right? They can start out good, and it's impossible for them to go bad. Because with socialism,
no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
Good, and then the leader ends up getting too power hungry and realizes they control the allocation of resources, and
so
they end up just hoarding more for their super class.
Right here, this guy in the comment section gets it just right. Could you argue that it takes a certain amount of mutual groupthink to champion individualism? Yeah, to a certain way. In order to have a functional society, you need to have a degree of groupthink and collectivism. It's not all bad.
Oh yeah, when they sat down and make the Constitution, you can argue.
That's what I'm saying, my man, and that's why I'm saying you're
like a homogenous thinking. But when they sat down and wrote the Constitution, they all argued. They argued against each other. That's not groupthink when they're arguing and trying to come up with better ideas.
Yes, but then eventually they did
you work on, like you use TikTok as a groupthink idea. Do you think every single engineer for TikTok had the same idea and all agreed? Absolutely not. That's not a groupthink.
Okay, so you don't understand what I'm saying, because yes,
no,
this
is
you don't. No, you don't.
But it's not.
No, you don't. So there comes a point once you have a shared goal. The engineers at TikTok, they're debating, figuring out which one has the better idea to implement. So once again, going back to how do you logically start a groupthink? You need to have one person, best idea, or a group of people with the best idea.
With the same idea.
So let me finish.
Right.
With a good idea. All right. And then what happens after that? Everybody then says, that's the best idea to go with. Scrap all other ideas.
That's
all.
Not groupthink.
It is.
Idea.
It is.
It's not the best idea. It's they all have the same idea. That's groupthink.
Yes. So if you're all working for the best idea, You're all working towards the best idea. You scrap all other ideas. Therefore, the best idea is the only idea you're working towards together as a group. You then have groupthink. Groupthink can be a good thing. Can it be a bad thing?
It can
Of
be a
course.
good thing, yes.
Yes. So
But
we're on the
it's
same
not better
page.
than
Dude,
individualism.
we're on the same page. We're on the same page 100%.
No, it's not better than individualism. That's your claim.
It is
Can
because
be a
you
good thing,
can't.
yes, but it's not better than
So,
individualism.
so let me ask you
Because
this.
You strip the rights from the individual.
Let me ask you this.
Everybody thinking that all right, go ahead. Fine.
Could one person started TikTok? Could one person start a government? Could one person pay the
That's called
streets?
society, dude.
Yeah, and society
That's not-
requires a group thing.
It's not a group thing.
It
Because
does.
Our Constitution is
It
our rights
requires
in
a
the
group
United States are
thing.
based off the individual. If we
It
had a group
requires.
identity, that you would have to make sacrifices that you didn't want to make for the group. That's not better than
Yes.
individualism. Individualism is, hey, I don't feel like working 120 hours this week for the group, so I don't want to. But groupthink says, well, you're the only one with these skills, so you have to work 120 hours this week for the group.
Yeah, there are times where you
That's
should
bad.
there are
So
times
forced
where
labor is good.
there are times where you should sacrifice yourself for the group.
Well, for instance, I'm a power lineman. Shit, how come I have to go up and work on 30,000 volts live?
Because you
I don't
sacrifice
want to.
yourself, you sacrifice your individuality and your own desires for the
So you're
betterment
entitled
of
to my labor?
society.
You're entitled to my labor?
No, I'm not saying that. You're conflating me with a
That's what you just
socialist.
said. I should sacrifice, so you're entitled to my labor.
No,
For
I'm
sure,
not saying
right?
I'm entitled to your labor whatsoever. I pay the company. I have no issue paying the company. I have no issue paying your wages. I think you guys should be paid very well. Very well. I'm very capitalistic.
Yeah.
Groupthink is good
I just don't see how it's better than individualism.
because you can't
You
have
can
one
still have
power lineman.
individualism in a society, can you not?
You can have, so here's the thing. They can complement each other, man. You can't have good individualism.
Right, they can complement each other. You're absolutely right. But your claim is groupthink is better than individualism.
Yes, it
So
is. And
you're
the reason,
picking one.
and this is the reason why I'm claiming it. All right. Because once again,
Explain.
you can't have a government without a form of groupthink. You can't have a police department without a form of groupthink. You can't
That's
have
called a team
order.
in society.
You can't have an order. You can't have society.
That's called a team.
Yes, you can't have any of
society.
it.
It's not groupthink.
You can't have any of
Groupthink
it
is a homogenous,
without groupthink.
homogenous ideology is groupthink.
No,
Have you
you
ever read
cannot.
1984?
Yes, I have.
Would you
And
say
I've
that's
read.
a homogenous ideology?
Yes, that was extreme groupthink.
Yeah, extreme. That's what
Yes.
at the base. That's what groupthink devolves into due to human
And
nature
you know
every
what
single time.
individuality
Hey,
and,
Mace Burke,
hang on,
because
and you know, and do you know what, and do you know what individuality,
was the greatest
and
in
do
the
you know,
30s,
and do
then he
you,
turned into an absolute tyrant.
and do you know what
So
individualism,
it's good.
and do you know what individualism leads into? Anarchy. It's a spectrum,
No,
bro.
not inside, not
It's a
society with
spectrum,
the
bro.
Constitution and
It's a spectrum.
Huh?
So you can go fully insane on your groupthink and you can go fully insane on your individuality. So groupthink, you then get atrocities like what happened in the Soviet Union. But then with individualism, what you get is anarchy and no order whatsoever. So one brings hyper order, which is groupthink, and the other brings complete chaos, which is individuality and anarchy.
well, how come individualism is the basis of our Constitution and we don't have anarchy?
It's not, though. It's not.
Well, the rights of the individual, yes, absolutely.
Yes, and who
They don't
protects
give
those rights?
to protected classes or groups of people.
And who protects those rights?
That's what the amendments were for when we decided that black people were people.
And who protects
We said,
those rights?
They're people.
Who protects those rights? The group. The group protects those
The
rights.
legislature,
The group protects those rights.
the legislature.
Yeah,
You
and
can
they're a
say
group.
groupthing's better than individualism, but you haven't given me an example of why.
I have. You need groupthink within society. But if we're gonna keep going back and forth on this, that's okay. We've agreed on some things that's good, and we're still now just getting caught up on semantics, and that's all right, man. Is there any other topic you want to talk about?
No, that was the biggest one I had an issue with because groupthink just always devolves into something terrible.
And
At least
individualism.
every atrocity that's ever happened in history, and you were not able to name one example of where it went well.
I have already.
Well, other than TikTok, but that's not groupthink.
No, I've given you
Groupthink
the
is
United
homogenous
States of
ideology.
America. The United States of
everybody
America.
on TikTok thinks the same.
The United States of America has a form of groupthink to it, and that allows us to be a functional society.
Right.
Exactly. So we've agreed on
groupthink
this. They can complement
better
each
than
other.
Individualism.
They can complement each other, and then groupthink is required.
But your claim is that groupthink is better than individualism.
Yes.
But right now we have a combination of groupthink and individualism, which gives us a certain amount of protection for the group and a certain amount of liberty for the individual, which is good.
Yes,
But
and
your
if you
claim
just and
here
if you
is that
had
it's
no
better.
groupthink,
It's a better system.
and if you
I don't
had,
think it is. You need both.
and if
But
you
it's
had,
not a better system.
I think that groupthink overall would be preferred over hyper individualism.
But can you agree that groupthink, a combination of groupthink and individualism, can work with focus on individualism?
Did we not already agree to this?
Because that's what we have.
Did we not already
your claim
agree
is that
to
it's
this?
better. You're saying
Yes.
scrap individualism. Go.
No, that's not my claim.
So you say it's better
That's
than.
not my claim. You're totally getting it wrong, and it's because you're triggered
So
still
you
by
think
groupthink.
Okay, so groupthink with a combination of individualism is better.
Yes, groupthink is
Okay,
preferred.
so then write that in your.
No, you don't tell me what to do, man.
Groupthink
You
is
don't tell me what to do. I'm standing by my
dude,
statement.
I'm just arguing your
Groupthink,
point. This
yes,
is your claim.
groupthink is
than
better.
Individualism, and you just said it yourself. It's not. It's
Yes.
better with individualism.
No, groupthink is better than individualism overall, but that doesn't mean that you should get rid of individualism. They can still work together, but groupthink is required in order to build functional societies.
Yeah, and the individuals are the ones who go in to put in the work.
And they
So
come
that's where
together
we
as a
disagree.
group with a shared goal, giving up their individuality and their creativity for a shared goal. To help certain
They're giving
segments.
up their-
Yes, for
So you
certain
think engineers
segments.
gave up their creativity and individuality to come up with TikTok?
Yes, they did. Once they had a shared goal. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
How do you think they come up with new features?
Yeah.
If it
So
was
once
groupthink,
again,
they wouldn't
so-
have any new features because everybody's
all right, dude,
homogeneous
dude, we
has
keep
homogeneous
circling
ideologies,
back
and they
around.
wouldn't change
All right, we keep circling
So,
back
but
around.
one engineer comes up with a new idea that's different than the groupthink, and then they say, "Hey, let's implement that." That's not groupthink. Groupthink is we have TikTok in its first form. The version 1 will not be changed because our groupthink already decided this is the best.
Oh my
But
gosh.
with individualism, that one engineer who has an idea, they can make it better.
Oh my
You
gosh,
don't see what I mean?
dude, I don't think
Genuinely?
that you understand that groupthink can evolve as well. Just because groupthink,
it can evolve as soon as human nature isn't a thing, because human nature doesn't change. Human nature is the same in the 1500s as it is now.
all right, dude, we keep arguing the same thing. We've already went over this.
Yep.
We've already talked about the engineers and how the engineers can come up with multiple ideas, and then the best idea wins, and then they all share the same idea.
Right, because of the individual coming up with a new idea.
And then they become a group again, and then they go into groupthink, so that way they can get shit done.
Okay. All right, yeah, you're right. This isn't going to go anywhere.
So, all right, man.
Have a good one, ideologue.
That dude's so triggered. He doesn't understand that I'm not for communism. I'm not for socialism. There are certain aspects of it that we can say are good. But I obviously wouldn't want to live in China. I don't want to live in Russia. I want to live in America. Hey, what's going on?
What up? Hey man, so I wanted to ask you, so what is your overall, so you're saying that, so groupthink,
Mm-hmm.
so I haven't been in here super long, so
Yeah.
I didn't hear how your guys' initial conversation had started, or the examples that you had given to where groupthink, works well. I think you had mentioned something like TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
But then at the tail end of your guys' conversation, he mentioned, there's one person that's going to come up with the idea, and then it all goes back into groupthink.
Yes.
That's right. And then you agreed with that premise. So it still relies on the individual to come up with the idea for everybody to get behind. So
Yes.
don't you feel like for everybody to just have one, as it was termed, homogenous view, don't you feel like that's kind of a sheep mentality? Just everybody just toe the line and just
Yes.
bow along.
Yes.
And you want to be a sheep
No.
that just follow what everybody else does?
No, but there are times where so sheep has become a very popular word these days. Sheep serve a purpose in the world, right? They're not just useless. But what I would say is this. Logically, you need one person that has an idea, has a goal, and then he can rally people behind that goal. And they're going to do whatever it takes to bring that idea or goal into fruition. And so, therefore, there's a certain degree in which they're sacrificing their individuality and their creativity to focus solely on the goal.
But
So,
to come up with that goal in the first place, you have to have creativity and individuality. You're not going to come up with any kind of.
I'm already.
So then what are you sacrificing? You're not sacrificing any creativity.
You are. Once you have the goal and idea, you are sacrificing, because then you are now saying, I am going to suppress any disagreement I have because I think that this is better than anything I can come up with. And that's not bad. That's how you get shit done. You can't get things done by yourself. You can't build a nation with one man. You can't build a nation when everybody thinking how they want to think without eventually saying, I'm going to scrap these thoughts regardless of my emotions and feelings, so that way we can actually build a police department. That way we can actually build a fire station, even though I don't agree where the fire hydrant's going to be, because I think it should be over here because of X, Y, and Z. You don't do that. You give up a certain amount of your individuality for the group, and that is good. It's not always bad.
I don't think that that's what the overall meaning of groupthink is, because groupthink is a more like what was mentioned before, a more homogenous view of I guess the overall goal, right? Where nobody has any individualism, nobody has any input themselves. They just go along to get along, and everybody has the same. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not going to foster growth. Individualism is what fosters growth. Groupthink is it's what fosters complacency and a same.
I agree.
You don't want complacency.
I agree.
But that's the thing. You don't want complacency. You can't grow if you're complacent. So groupthink is not better than individualism.
It is, because individualism doesn't allow you to. So individualism, you can facilitate the ideas, you can facilitate the creativity, but then in order to get anything done, you need the group. So I would say the group is much more effective than the individual. Now, the individual is very important. So you do need the individual to come up with ideas, come up with certain goals. But in order to get any of those done, you need the group. So if the individual didn't have the group, you wouldn't get anything done. But if you always have a group, you're always going to have some goal that you could share. So I'm not in support of so once again, it's a spectrum. Groupthink can go totally awry. Nazis, Soviet Union, Mao's China, etc. Individualism can go totally awry as well, where you now have anarchy in no order whatsoever. Everybody does as they wish.
Everybody does as they wish under groupthink?
No, under individualism. It's a spectrum. Okay. Spectrum. Individualism, hyper individualism becomes anarchy. Hyper groupthink becomes tyrannical overlords.
But why wouldn't you want people doing? But that's I guess that's where you lose me. Why wouldn't you want people doing what they want to do? I mean, if they don't,
Do you not see society today? I don't want children going into places where only adults should be going, but now they're accepting it because everybody do what you wish.
I mean, I agree. I agree with that. I do.
Boom.
I mean, I agree that we should protect children's innocence. But
I also don't agree with this either. I don't think that people that are the same, I have to be careful in my language, that are the same biologically should be showing any public affection whatsoever. That should be shamed and outlawed.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I do. Because how do you get the children being persecuted?
I gotta give it to you. That's a bold statement to have on the internet.
Yeah.
That's a very bold statement. I'm not knocking you. I'm not like giving you any, whatever, but that's a bold statement. I would, so I understand that through individualism, we run into some roadblocks, I'll say, right? Let's use the child thing as an example, right? I understand that we run into some roadblocks. However, individualism, individualism is what allows you to have your opinions and your views the way that you have them. Mm-hmm. If everybody just followed along with this groupthink mentality, you're based on current popular, what's quote unquote popular, even though they are the smallest minority in all of, let's just say, the United States, right? That, that demographic you were just talking about that you said that should be outlawed. Even though they're the smallest minority, but yet everybody, for the most part, companies, the nation over, everybody supports them and their ideology, right? Mm-hmm. Based on groupthink, you would have to get in line with what they espouse. So wouldn't that go against your basic principles? Wouldn't that essentially screw you over? Because now your opinion, your how you feel about that, it's no longer it's null and void now, because you have to agree with what the group thinks. You don't get your individual thought.
And that's good in some cases. For example, I'm a father. There's certain things that I really don't care how my daughters would feel about the way I reacted to something. Right? And so there should be certain things in society, because the family, if you extrapolate out, is what makes society. And so that would eventually happen with the government to people as well. And I think that to a certain degree, it's fine to have that. To where you can think what you want to think. You can have those opinions, but you can't spread them here. And they're not going to be enforced here at all. Nobody cares. In your mind, in your journal, write them down. Cool. Awesome. But they're not going to work here.
But that would foster no growth forward.
Not necessarily. It depends, once again. So we have to stop thinking binary, right? This is 3-dimensional thinking here, bro. So groupthink is more than just, all right, you just have this one idea and this is the idea we stick with forever. No, there could be multiple groups. There could be competing groups. There can be a group that then gets a new leader, and then that leader comes up with a new idea, and then that group changes its idea and then changes its law of order. So it's dynamic.
You know what you're advocating for, right? You know what you're advocating for, right? It's not groupthink. It's an entirely other word. It starts with a T. You know what that is, right?
What's that?
It's tribalism.
And yes, and work. Tribalism and groupthink go hand in hand.
The way you just explained it, they're one and the same thing.
Yes, and I'm for tribalism. Tribalism is good.
Tribalism is not good.
Okay.
That's how you end up with internal coups. That's how you end up with infighting amongst entire civilizations of people. That's how you end up with one group getting eradicated. Like it's under that type of ideology that I would argue stemmed the entire 1930s like destruction of the Jewish people in Europe. It's that type of ideology. That type of groupthink ended up getting millions of people killed in all of Europe.
So
that type of ideology screwed over a lot of people. That's not.
So once again, it's a spectrum.
That's not something to be
Once
championed.
again, it's a spectrum. So tribalism, me and my family, we're a tribe. I pick my tribe over your tribe any day. I will do anything I can, if it came down to it, if required, to take out your tribe in order for my tribe to win. All right? If your tribe was endangering my tribe or doing something that would put my tribe in some sort of risk, I would choose my tribe every day. So tribalism can be a good thing. Can it be a bad thing? Just like everything else.
Well, I guess elaborate to me where, as an example, individualism has transpired into millions of deaths.
The French Revolution, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, all revolutions are led by individualism. That's what sparks them.
Do you mean because people didn't want to sit under authoritarian and totalitarian government structures?
That's the historical narrative. But then if we look at what took place afterwards, they're not much better, are they?
I mean,
America's declining. America's turning into a hellhole. The whole European nations are declining as well. They're not doing much better after your individualism led into the Enlightenment, which then led to the French Revolution. Now look at France.
You would argue that the United States is led under individualism. I mean, granted,
no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the American Revolution was sparked by that.
And okay, sure, that may be true to an extent, but it was for the common good of the people.
That's what you can argue. But I just gave you examples of many people.
Government anymore.
But I just gave you an example. Your question was, give you an example of people perishing, lots of people perishing during individualism. Gave you the examples. They're there.
But I think that the American Revolution and the French Revolution are much different than 6 million Jews being killed.
You can argue it however you want to. We don't even know the amount of deaths that actually happened at that event that you're talking about. We don't know the amount of death that actually happened during the French Revolution or the American Revolution. We don't. We really don't. It's very hard to determine how many people were actually perished in those times.
Well, regardless of if it's 1 million. Here's another example. Again, like you had mentioned before, Pol Pot's China, right? I mean, like that's another like glaring example of how groupthink will get you killed over individualism. I mean, if individualism is what leads to the French Revolution and the American Revolution, where you break the shackles of your oppressive, tyrannical government to have freedom for yourself and your family. So as you said, you can protect your tribe, your family, which I am totally for, by the way, right? Always protect you and yours. However, if the difference is, millions of people being slaughtered and killed because they don't agree or don't align with your group ideology, or the quote unquote individualist idea that everybody has their own, their own right to pursuit of happiness and such, like, I'm going to take individualism all day, every day. You can't tell me that you cannot equate those two. You just can't.
I just
They're not
did.
the same thing.
I
know you did.
So I gave you an example.
It's wholly incorrect.
I gave you an example because your question was, can you give me an example of people perishing under individualism? I gave you them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, you did. You absolutely did give me an example of people perishing under individualism. However,
so really quick with that, we should be able to acknowledge we're debating on a spectrum here, and now I don't think that we're going to come to an agreement simply based off of semantics, it appears. Because you can keep listing off these examples, which I've already listed off too. I've listed off Nazi Germany. I've listed off the Soviet Union. I've listed off China as being, and that's something you were unable to do. You could not give me a bad example of individualism. You only gave me one side of individualism. I'm able to give you good and bad of groupthink. And then I have to give you good and bad of individualism. And then I have to explain it's a spectrum.
Individualism is that it's the individual that makes that choice for themselves. As an example, it's your individual personal belief that the sames, as we discussed before, that should be outlawed, that they shouldn't be allowed to do that it should be criminalized, right? That's your personal individual view. If we as a society agreed on that and then it became groupthink, that could lead to, and just you thinking that by yourself means nothing unless you go out and you go out and you attack somebody based on those principles that you as an individual espouse. However, under groupthink, you take those same, if everybody and their mother agreed with that same principle, that entire demographic of people, no matter how small it is, would now be at drastic, they would be at a significant disadvantage as far as their safety is concerned, because they would be in the same ballpark as like 1930s, 1940s Germany was with the Jews trying to hide from that same type of groupthink. Your individual, I get what you're trying to get at, right? That groupthink is good because then everybody gets on board with the same thing. But what you're failing to understand is that groupthink, more often than not, ends in very bad things.
It's a spectrum. Individualism can lead to very, very bad things as well. Went over this already.
But
so,
again, the things
anyway,
you're saying are very, very bad. It's what the revolution.
There's probably many more. But anyway, we're not going to keep circling around this. There's a couple other people that want in. If there's something else you want to talk about, we can give a few minutes to that. Otherwise, I'm going to let somebody else in.
Yeah, that's fine, man. I would honestly, my guy, I would really urge you to do some research on the difference between a revolution and genocide.
I'm anti-revolution. I've done plenty of research. I've come full circle. I do not like revolutions.
You gotta.
I don't.
But why? You wouldn't have what you have now if it weren't for the revolutions that happened.
You're right. Doesn't mean that I should like it. Doesn't mean that I agree with the tactic. I don't know what it would have been like to continuously live under a British control. Arguably, we still are under British control. There's a good theory about that we never have separated the powers between the monarch in Britain and the United States. And then there's also a theory that the central bank links us all. So I don't really know what it would have looked like otherwise. Am I happy for my life? Yeah, I am very happy for my life. I am happy for the life that I live right now. But it doesn't mean that I have to be pro-revolution. It's just like saying, Franklin Roosevelt's father, our grandfather on his mom's side, was essentially, slaying opium over in China. And that's how they made their riches. So it'd be like Franklin Roosevelt saying, well, I'm very anti-opium, but then somebody's saying, how can you be anti-opium when your family's made their wealth from this? You see what I'm saying?
I mean, sort of, but you gotta look at. Here's another example, right? Here's another.
I don't want to keep going on this. By the way, there's other people that want to come on, and
all right, that's fine, my guy. They're gonna tell you the same stuff. You're gonna keep getting L's in the chat, my guy. That's fine.
That's okay.
Keep saying the same crap because you're delusional.
Hey, guess
I'm
what?
sorry.
You guys are group thinking right now. It's so ironic. It's ironic. They're all in unison, giving me an L. But they don't realize what they're doing. All right.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad. Just a little steamy out here in Phoenix, but par for the course.
Yeah, I hear you. It's
So,
pretty humid where I'm at.
Are you in Arizona?
I'm not. No. I'm
No,
in the
back
Midwest.
east.
I'm in the Midwest.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole country's kind of in a state of heat, or whatever you want to call it, a drought. However, I did hear you mention, there was a theory we never separated from Britain,
Mhm.
and you can look at, we haven't totally. We use common law within our court system, and that's all based off King James Bible and Britain, and so I mean, no, we haven't totally separated. But beyond that, within what you're saying there, how would you implement? I mean, you're saying you agree that individualism and groupthink have to be used together. You can't just go one way.
Yes.
How would you implement what you're suggesting on a level of 328 million people, like what we got
I don't know,
in America?
man. I don't know. I mean, we already see it though, right? We see it in microcosms, in companies. We see it in families. So it happens everywhere. In local municipalities, there's certain levels of groupthink. There's certain levels of individualism. But as far as implementing it on a global scale, on a nationwide scale, well, that's not how the United States is designed to begin with, right? We have checks and balances. We have a federal system.
Right.
We have the states that have their own powers. But what I'm getting at is that these things are fractionalized down into the home, even where you do have a type of groupthink. But that type of groupthink can facilitate the protection so that way you can express your individuality at the same time.
Right. I mean, that groupthink derives out of individuality, correct? You know what I mean? Like, someone comes up with an idea and then, more people get involved. You got one person per se, maybe, you go with some of the big corporations, Amazon or something like that. It started out with one man's idea, and it grew with the implementation of many people around him who he surrounded himself with, correct? And who helped build that corporation.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, you're not for the abolishment of the Constitution per se, or are you?
I don't know, man. I don't know. These days, I'm sort of leaning towards monarchy, but I don't know, to be honest with you. As of right now, I would say no, simply because I don't want chaos. I like order.
Right.
It provides a good protection. Yeah. It provides a good functional society. So it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of problems within our system now, and I attribute a lot of that to the idiot box throughout the history of our country. I mean, when I grew up, I'm kind of crusty. I'll be 51 next month, but when I was growing up, all the mothers were trained to watch Days of Our Lives and General Hospital. A good part of the population. We just look at what the idiot box has been put there for. It's by design. It is programming at its, it can be used a number of ways. It can be used as a tool, but, a lot of it is programming. You take it per se in our country compared to others. We got big pharma commercials, every other commercial. Other countries don't have big pharma implemented like that. And it's, simply, I don't know if you ever seen the movie Idiocracy, but we're kind of living in that current time.
I agree.
Dumbing down of America and the world on a whole, So no, I see what you're saying. I just wanted to see how you would implement that on a level of 328 million. I just, without tearing apart our Constitution and our country as we know it. I've been abroad 3 other countries and 48 states. So, I mean, I've been within the idiot box would lead us to believe we got a lot less in common with each other than what we do.
I agree with that.
And it's a shame.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, and just to clarify here, when I say groupthink is better than individualism, maybe a better wording would be more effective, because you need groupthink to build anything functional. And you need to have You need to give up. You need to suppress.
Many ideas for something to grow and be successful.
Yes. So
you can't just
groupthink.
go by one idea. One idea starting an idea, starting something out, like any of the corporations or companies that have been successful within this country. It starts out with an idea and people grow. If you don't have all eyes on something, a lot of times, within our country, it will fail only because, you're only looking through the views of your own eyes instead of taking the ideas of many. It's just like a homicide case. They'll usually have 5-6 homicide detectives looking at one murder sometimes, if it's a big enough thing, and it takes all their ideas to solve a case sometimes. Just an example.
Yeah, and I also want to add this. Nobody starts off as an individual, right? Because who brings you into this world? Your mother.
We're raised by the ideals
of the group,
people within our homes, within our tribe, actually.
Exactly.
If you're born into a family,
yes,
some of us
exactly.
foster and all that.
So groupthink, I stand by my claim that groupthink is way more effective than individualism. It doesn't mean that it's always good, because it can be but because effective doesn't necessarily mean good either, right? Because you can be effective, killing machines. That doesn't necessarily mean a good thing, right? But you can get more things done in a group than you can as an individual. That's basically the whole point. In that this is a spectrum. Okay. You can get hyper individualism. You can get hyper groupthink. And they can go very bad.
So I see DeSantis Kerry Lake up there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Kerry Lake was ahead by about 10,000 here in Phoenix. I haven't looked today.
I guess she won. That's what I was seeing on Twitter anyway.
She did win.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't looked this morning. I'm here in Phoenix. I voted the other day. We got big problems in the city of Phoenix itself.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have a mayor here that has let our streets become an open air fentanyl market. You can't really go more than a mile in any direction of the city without seeing someone getting high on fentanyl. It's horrible here.
Yeah,
and I lived here for 11 years before, moved away for 5 years, and came back a year ago this June. And the city is literally, it reminds me of like New York City or Philadelphia. I'm from Pennsylvania, so I've kind of been up and down the East Coast a lot, lived in different places. I joined the military out of Freeport, Long Island, so back in high school. But, you go into these places now, it's almost like you're taking your life. You can easily become a statistic, you know, if in many places now, these gun-free zones, these soft zones. And I know, I don't know if you're for, you're a 2A proponent or you're against it.
I'm for it.
I feel so I'm definitely for being able to protect our own as ourself and within our families, tribe, whatever you want to call it, or for that matter, just like the guy in Indiana this a couple weeks ago that took the guy out in the mall.
Right. Yep.
Luckily that kid had his piece because that was a gun-free zone. It said no guns.
Right.
And had he not just said, screw you, I'm not playing your freaking put me up as a target game.
Right.
There would have been a lot more lost,
Yeah, I agree with you.
I went to schools in inner city Philadelphia, and we had armed security. That's what I don't get. Like our schools and some of the inner city neighborhoods are like Philly, New York, Chicago. I don't know Chicago anymore. They're so gun free. We had security with. Sometimes they were off-duty police, that were armed at our doors. I don't get why every school in America doesn't have some kind of system implemented like that. We can throw $50 billion to Ukraine, but we can't sink it into our kids and the people on the streets. That's another thing. We have we probably got over 20,000 on the streets of Phoenix alone. Houseless, and a lot of that is fentanyl use.
Yeah, I definitely get the sentiment there, especially regarding sending billions of dollars to Ukraine and not putting it back into American infrastructure in many ways. I'm not necessarily a fan of armed security guards in schools. I think that it's the parent's responsibility to homeschool their child. And it's a pretty strong opinion of mine, but I think that you're failing as a parent if you have to send them to public school because it is your duty.
That's a very good analysis. School wasn't designed to be the ultimate say and hand in education. It's supposed to be used as an extension from the home. You get your core ideas. My father was a art teacher for 46 years.
Okay.
And so he was born 1921, came here from Ireland in 31, grew up Great Depression, World War II vet, and then he taught. And man, I'll tell you what, we were reading before we went to kindergarten fluently.
Oh, wow.
He used these old books called the McGuffey Readers, and he ruled with an iron fist. And I ain't going to say everything was that much fun, but I totally appreciate, what he gave me for the rest of my life because, I've gone through some super hard times just like any other American, and I've never let myself become a victim of my own choices. You know what I mean? And that's the thing.
Yeah.
People got to learn to live by the choices they make. They shouldn't be like, oh, I fucked this up. And, it's the government's job to fix it for me.
100%. Yeah, I'm with you.
Go broke.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, man. Yeah, and
then I don't know anything about Andrew Tate. I saw people in the comments earlier saying that he was avoiding arrest for SA and stuff like that. I don't know anything about the guy, but I totally believe that all SA deserve the lead pill. As long as there's proof beyond a reason of a doubt, with proof with me, because I know
I guess it depends.
A lot of innocent people pay for crimes they didn't commit, but the sexual assault on children.
Yes, that's
get down with
yes.
I can't get down with MAP and all that shit.
Yeah, if it's children, yes, without exception. But we got to be careful on this topic because TikTok likes to ban.
Yeah, they'll shut it down with a quickness.
Right.
It is hilarious how it's kind of weird how it's almost protected in America. Here in Arizona, they have some of the lightest sentencing for them within the state. They end up walking, it seems like, and it's kind of the ones that do make it inside. Have to in Arizona, they have to be on a protected spot within the system because they're pretty much see you later on site. They don't play with them here, so and that's I don't totally agree with our privatization of the prison system, but I agree with the justice some people get within the decisions they made towards children on the street.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm with you there. 100%.
We just watched a documentary last night. Don't mean to get off subject, but it was on this guy named Duncan out of Seattle, Washington. And he was a 7-time level 3 violent offender for SA. And he started at the age 16. And they gave him a 40-year sentence at that time. 2 years, the first 2 years, 16 to 18, he was in a hospital system, getting analyzed, seen by doctors and all that. The doctors decided that there was no fixing him for society and that he needed to serve out the rest of his sentence. He went into the adult system and was out within 5 years. 7 times violently offended after that. And what took it for him getting caught is he he went from Washington, Seattle to Minnesota, reoffended there while he was still on parole. Minnesota let him out on a $15,000 bail for the same violent offenses. He left there and went down into Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and unalived a whole family except for a 7 and 8 year old. Took him on a run with him, doing all kinds of shit, filming all that, before he was finally caught The girl that survived it, the little boy didn't survive. He unalived the little boy right in front of her with a shotgun one day after he said he was going to release him. The little girl pretty much befriended him, became her own best weapon within it, like made him think that she, was his friend and cared about him. It was a sick story, but
Sounds like it.
because she got him to believe that, she was on his side and that she wanted to take him back to the town where she grew up and show her where her friends were at and this and that. This mentally unstable fool bit it and took her back there, and they were eating at a Denny's in town. And, there had been posters up for like 8 years or however many, it was many years that these kids ended up being, possessed by this guy. And the lady in the Denny's recognized her and called the police, was able to get them there, stay long enough, and got the police and got him. But he got, and they ended up linking him to like 4 other cases.
Wow.
In other Riverside, all over the place, where he had unalived these other children and shit. So they gave him like 5 life sentences on the other ones, but he did get the death penalty or the unalive penalty for the case of the whole family. But places like that, we see our justice system failing the people 7 times. Violent level 3 offender, and they just let him back out on the streets.
Yeah,
that's
I'm for more liberal capital punishments. They should be.
Right.
I think that they should be given out much more frequently.
Right, and I feel hands down, cut and dry. If they're guilty, to me, public is the way to go. You got to start setting a tone for somebody, or by choice
Right.
of the victims, and if there is no victim, let it go to their families.
Right.
They don't necessarily have to carry it out, but it's by their choice what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, how do you feel about Lake and DeSantis then?
I don't think the opposite of men should ever be in political office, so I don't agree with her ever getting elected, or anybody that's the same thing as she is. If you catch my drift, I got to be careful of my language.
Okay.
It's not a place for them at all. And also she's a journalist, so she can just read a teleprompter really good.
Right.
So
No,
yeah.
a lot of them up there are paid actors.
Yeah, exactly. And then as far as Ron DeSantis, he's done some cool stuff, but he's also he's also a shill, man. He's also sold out to the good old country with a star on their flag, the Star of David.
Okay.
I mean, you can't.
I get what you're saying there.
Yeah.
With the groupthink thing, like our country plays a huge part in the worldwide food supply chain. With stuff like that, would you pull it back to our?
Say that again.
Borders?
I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
I said, like, within the groupthink mentality of what you got going on there, we play in the United States. We play a huge part in the worldwide food supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
With wheat, fuel. What would you do with something like that? Would you pull it back to our own borders and go solo? Because it's hard to do. With a country of 328 million, we rely on other resources than just what we have here.
I don't agree with that. I think that we have everything we need here.
You think we would? But how many years would we be
I don't know, man.
Before I realized there was a ton of resources within America, and that we could, like with our clothing, all that stuff, a lot of that should be pulled back to our country to build jobs within ourselves. But I just feel like, after so many years, especially with wheat and all that, is the way it's distributed throughout the world, how long could we be totally self-sufficient?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. How many years? But what I do know is that they lie a lot about how long we have until all the oil runs out. how long we have until
Right.
all the metal runs out, how long we have until we're submerged underwater. All of these things have been
Right.
totally incorrect.
Yeah,
So
a lot of
I
that.
have no clue.
Yeah. Right. No, but I know, like, the wheat supply chain does have a problem, and it's been seen in many countries.
Mhm.
And one of the main issues of that, and I'm not going to say climate change, I'm going to say fertilizer. You got countries in Africa that have totally pulled back on using fertilizers that our supply chain relies on.
Mhm.
We have, and there are mass fires throughout the world, but I'm not gonna
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say there isn't climate change. There's climate change, but we live on an earth that naturally has cycles.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
100%.
cycles itself out, and right now it looks like it's getting tired of the dumbing down.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I'm with you. So I don't know. I'm very for America being a sovereign nation. I don't believe in globalism at all.
Yeah, I don't on a huge level.
Yeah.
I mean, where we're signing on with other countries to, like you said, Ukraine and stuff like that. We have no business being over there.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
If people think that Putin is a super military power, he has a lot of arsenal, but he has a lot of junk, unfortunately for him. I served during Desert Storm. He fucking one Scud missile.
They've
throughout the whole thing.
they've advanced.
They've evolved
a lot. I would say that they have a lot of.
They got super cities. Moscow is a badass place.
Well, I would say this too, man, that we've seen during the Ukrainian war with all the weapons we're supplying to them, Russia's destroying them, bro. Russia would win against the war in the United States, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
They're just on the rise. The United States is on the fall. Russia's on the rise.
Yeah, because we give all our shit away and leave it in other countries.
That's one reason.
We just, the $50 billion was a lot of surplus we just gave them, tons of surplus, and then Afghanistan we left millions and millions of dollars worth of stuff. We do that historically. When we came back from Desert Storm, and I definitely am not talking shit about our military, and I could have got in trouble for this a long time ago, but it doesn't matter now. But every time we pull offshore, a quarter mile offshore from any foreign soil, even in America, as far as I know, we are dumping what they call biodegradable trash into the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's utilized on that ship goes over deck. I don't know. This was in the early 90s. They could have, changed this by now, but this went on for decades. When we came back from Desert Storm, the ship I was on alone, we dumped probably 4 pallets of dead batteries. We dumped pallets of concertina wire. We dumped pallets of tires. We dumped pallets of rims or wheels. We dumped pallets of air filters, fuel filters, oil filters, anything that them Humvees used over there, gallons of oil, all went right into the med. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, like, you see things that are strictly, a no-no to do here on our own land, but we're quick to dump everywhere else,
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, now we're seeing Ukraine's people selling the weapons we gave them on the black market.
Yeah, it's insane what we got going on. And all that is because we're protecting the dirty laundromat we've had been going in Ukraine for so many decades now.
It could be that.
It's a good place for dirty politicians to wash their money and invest in corrupt shit like barista and crap like that, if you buy into it.
Yeah, it certainly could be that. I know that a lot of people think it is exactly that, but I don't know, man. I mean, it's a viable theory.
Yeah, I mean, they're like, no, we're, that country's going to be an asset for Russia, blah, blah, blah. We got Norway. That's always been our northern entrance. We did cold weather survival training in Wisconsin and Norway just for that, and that was way post Cold War. We're talking 1993. I went over, and we still have that, to this day. So it's like, really, Ukraine. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, it makes sense that we watch our politicians, buy into these countries like China and Ukraine. That there definitely is something there, but to me, it looks like a laundromat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you could be 100% right, man.
Or partly.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's
true.
a lot of things.
True. So, yeah, anything else that you want to talk about on there? Or?
Nah, man, you have a great day. Thanks for letting me get a voice on here. And
yeah, of course.
Be safe out there.
Yeah, you
Stay
do the
strong.
same, man. Peace. All right. So we'll let one more person in if one more person wants to come in. I've already talked to that line guy, Sky 2. I've already talked to him. So if anybody new wants to come in, feel free. Yeah. So ultimately, what it comes down to, any credentials from anyone, or are we just fishing for views? You refuse to use definitions of words. I don't. I've already told you, man, that you can go back and look about an hour and 10 minutes ago. I literally used the definitions. But my account with live, gotcha. Not at all. Yeah. Once again, if you want to go back and listen to this MOT media in a way that discourages creativity and responsibility, yeah, I literally said it suppresses it. Literally, when we talked. We've already went over it. How is Andrew Tate the guy going against everything that the system wants? He's not, though. Representing the system. He's not. He promotes promiscuity. He promotes money being the savior. He doesn't speak out against the people that are controlling the banks. He doesn't talk about the damaging pride movement. I don't despise Democrats' liberal thinking. Okay, that approves your TikTok example. No, it doesn't, actually. We've already went over this. Okay, we get it. We get it. We get it. You think it's bad. You don't understand the spectrum. I get it. You listen to Mr. Tate? Let's see. Take stock of your happiness. Yeah. The U.S. will not break up. I think it will. You don't understand the definition or completely discount it. No, I do. I understand it. No, I don't. I literally defined it on here like an hour ago. MOT Media on YouTube, and you can go see it. Okay, we've already agreed, but you literally agreed. You're the one backpedaling, bro. You're the one that's like, when we were talking on here, you said, yeah, well, yeah, you do need, they complement each other. You said that they complemented each other on my live stream. I have it recorded. Seems good, but in reality, it wouldn't be. I don't know what you're talking about. I'll say this, huge W for the host not blocking everyone who disagrees with them. I won't block you if you're not, if you're being disrespectful to me, like that's when you get blocked. But if you want to have a conversation and you just disagree with me, that's fine. Hey, what's going on?
Hi, bud.
How are you?
How are you?
Doing well.
Not bad. Yeah. No, I've noticed your headlines, your topics, and I'm intrigued about the first two.
Okay.
I run a podcast, and we are doing, for our show this weekend, we are doing Is It a Man's World? And I know my co-host who we completely disagree on everything. She's from California. She's a liberal. She's a black woman, obviously. And I'm white, Scottish. I'm a conservative-leaning person. So we kind of go back and forth on a lot. And I know she's been doing a lot of research into this Andrew Tate guy.
who have listened to a few things of his. So I'm just intrigued to know what your views are. It's
Yeah.
kind of a
Well, first off, you're on my podcast, right? So this is airing off everywhere right now, MOT Media. This segment's called The Honest Hour. What's your podcast called? So that way the people can know.
Well, just I'm logged in as our podcast, Friendly Differences Podcast.
Okay, awesome.
We've only been going about 2-3 months. We've got about 15 shows. We go live on a Saturday afternoon, PSI Pacific Standard Time, 12 noon on a Saturday. So, yeah, thanks for that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course, that's awesome. So I'll have to give you a follow and I'll check you guys out. So yeah, as far as what I mean by Andrew Tate being Agent Smith and not Morpheus, it's pretty simple. He's not outside of the Matrix as he claims. In the beginning of the show, I had a conversation with a gentleman. We went over this in depth. And the reason I say that is because he's promoting hypermaterialism. He thinks that money is the savior. The reason why he was able to evade all of the cough and sniffle restrictions, he attributes to having money, which is totally false. I'm not wealthy, and I never put a face diaper on. I never did any of this. So there's other avenues. So I think that he's very misleading in his hypermaterialism and money being a savior. I also disagree with his promiscuity. I don't think it's wrong for a man to have more than one wife, but he should be committed to, if he has two wives, he should be strictly committed to those two wives. If he has one wife, he's strictly committed to that one wife. Because if you're being promiscuous as a man, you then require the woman that you're going to be promiscuous with to be promiscuous as well. So then that crumbles the family across the board. So that's a contradicting thought he has. I think that's a bad thought. It's very pro-feminist. And then the other thing that I disagree with him on is that God is an idea. He says that God is real because people believe God is real and the idea itself is real. Therefore, he now believes in God. So there's actually a fourth point that I'll add in a second. But if God is an idea, well, then God can be anything that you want God to be, which in my view is satanic and is exactly what a Luciferian Satanist would say, because that would allow you to do as you want and make your own moral belief system. And then the fourth thing that I'll add is that he is whether he realizes it or not, he's controlled opposition, a gatekeeper, and mostly for men looking for good masculinity. I think that there's a lot of good traits about him. I'll list those off before I keep going on the bad things. I like the way that he encourages men to stick to their word, to work hard, to not become weak. I agree with him a lot on the mental health issues, as far as like being a victim, feeling depressed, all those things. I 100% agree with him there, as far as having that stoic mentality to just get the work done. Don't let your emotions overpower the things you need to do, because that's not masculine. So I like the conviction, as well as somebody else states, the fact that he does not back down from his positions. I admire that, because a lot of men don't have the courage to do that these days. And then his view on women in general, I totally agree with the traditional gender roles. It's just the way it is. But now, so those are a lot of the things that I agree with him on. He speaks a lot of truth, but he ultimately, in my opinion, whether he realizes it or not, is a gatekeeper, and mostly a gatekeeper for white right-wing men who are trying to find a dad, right? Because how many men in Western societies don't have a strong father figure? And so he's serving as that, which can be good. But the issue becomes when you start thinking money is your savior. Not saying money is bad. I own a business. I like to make money, but I know money is not my savior. Money ain't going to save me. And the idea that he's outside of the Matrix is a fallacy. He's still within the Matrix, and he's actually promoting more people to be in the Matrix than he realizes.
Also, I love that. That was well said. And you're just confirming some of the beliefs that I had about him. I think I also have my own podcast. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I do shows like the JFK, the Titanic, Flat Earth, and things like that.
Nice.
So I wondered, when you're saying the words gatekeeper and all that, if maybe you know, because I see that as well. I think he's an agent provocateur. He's definitely propped up, and he he's out there being pushed and pushed. Like TikTok is full of him right now. And what's more is he talks openly about I don't know if you're allowed to say certain things. I'm new to TikTok, but what's going on in the last couple of years?
The cough and sniffles. The cough and sniffles. Yeah.
So what's going on? He is saying things that, although I agree with, but he's not even getting taken down. He doesn't even get the warning at the bottom of his screen. You and I tried to do that, and we'd be off, So he's being pushed out there, and he's trying to gather and radicalize men who are maybe struggling in life to get an attitude to hate women. And I do agree with a lot of the things he said. I sat and watched the date with that Cheyenne girl. It was like an hour-long episode. I watched the full thing, and I thought, you know something? I agree with 75, 80, 90% of what he says, but it's the way, and you're going to get guys that will take his belief systems to the extreme and treat women like crap, and I think there's a better way of doing it. But
well, I will say this, just to add on to that, I completely and utterly agree with him on his position with women, and I think that it's actually a good thing for men, because men pedestalize women like crazy today. They don't deserve to be on a pedestal, so he teaches them to not do that. And that doesn't mean, and he's very much a gentleman as far as that goes. I will give him that. Like, people get this messed up view that, you're somewhat of a simp if you think a woman's beautiful and you hold the door open for her, you bring flowers for her on your date or something. None of those things are simp behaviors. And I think that he's actually illustrating what it is to be a strong man in a relationship. But there's a lot of downsides to that, because you can't be a strong man in a relationship and have a family if you're going to go around and sleep with any cute girl that you see, because then you lack discipline, bro. That's your vice. That's a big vice, right? I mean, you're just doing it for pleasure at that point. And then how many untold unalivings has he been a part of that we don't know about? How many of his own have been unalived, whether he knows it or not, because he's so promiscuous? So there's a lot of things that I totally disagree with him on. But as far as the gender roles thing, that's probably the most. That's the thing I agree with most. And then he also is radicalizing because he's so anti-establishment. I am I dive down the rabbit hole myself, and now I'm at the point where I realize we need the government, man. The government isn't all bad. It serves a purpose. Without it, we have anarchy. Without it, we have anarchy, and anarchy is horrible. So I am not anti-government. I do think that the government can become tyrannical. I think the government can do atrocious things, but I accept the fact that the government will always be around. You always need order. And so anybody who's anti-establishment, in my opinion, whether they realize it or not, is an agent of chaos.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking there of an example to kind of back up what I was going to say. And the one that was springing to my mind was where he says about if women was to carry their body count around on their forehead, so how many men they'd slept with, the world would be a lot of the world's problems. And saying that is like radicalizing. Like, that is probably something that men will start saying to women, and it'll cause friction. But his analogy is, although a poor one, it actually does make sense. If women treated their body like if they didn't just go out and sleep and open their legs, and again, men do it also, and they held men accountable. Because I always say, and I tell girls that I know, friends, I tell a lot of people, if you make your man work for it, like date them, make them buy you flowers, make them take you out for meals, they'll respect you more. They'll fight for it. They'll try harder. And I think that's what he was getting at with that. But so I was gonna go into it was the United States will break up. So what's your feelings on that? What's your theory?
Yeah, so I think that the United States is going to balkanize probably in our lifetime. We see, for example, that's why I have DeSantis and Kerry Lake on here. I'm not a supporter of either of them, but DeSantis, I don't know if you saw this or not, but suspended his state attorney, who is a Soros-backed attorney, because he wasn't enforcing the laws that have been implemented in Florida recently. And so he suspended him and replaced him. So I thought right there we are seeing an end of the global control, at least I can't even say it like that because it's not a blanket term. This is another thing a lot of conspiracy theorists get wrong. I'm not saying you, but there isn't just one group controlling it. There's multiple groups. We don't know all the groups. There's a lot of groups that have a lot of money, that have a lot of power. So different fractions control different politicians, whatever. And so what we're now seeing is now the war between these elites are coming onto the big screen in the United States. And so we see that in Florida, for example, where Florida is now dissenting a lot of the federal government and their elitists that are running things. So I think right there we're seeing the beginning, somewhat in the beginning stages of breaking away and doing their own thing. This is just like very early stages. And then Carrie Lake said that if she gets elected, she will finish the wall without Biden's approval. So right there, we have two examples of states that are totally disregarding the federal, and they're going to start doing their own thing for their own people. And I think that's only going to expand. If you recall, during the cough and sniffle debacle, we had this autonomous zone that came about in CHOP or CHAZ or whatever it was called. I think you're going to be seeing a lot more of those in cities because cities are becoming more crime-ridden in the United States. And as we go on and the supply chains keep breaking down, the economy keeps, getting hurt, is just being destroyed essentially. We're slowly going to see states team up with states and probably see some type of civil war, and then states merging together to have this is the Midwestern whatever half that they call their own thing and they're their own thing. Then you have the Southwestern half that's their own thing, that they do their own thing. And it doesn't mean that you can't have commerce within these places, but I believe they're going to establish their own borders. And I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but I do believe in our lifetime we will at least see the beginning of the Balkanization of the United States for many reasons.
Yep, I agree. When I joined, you've heard about Telegram. There's an app, Telegram. It's a bit like WhatsApp, Signal. It's a messaging platform. And I joined there, and it's really good for going down the rabbit hole. There's a lot of groups on there, and there was a video that I was sent quite early on from a author of a book. He wrote this book back in the 80s or 90s, I believe. And here's him talking on a platform in front of loads of people, and he's saying that from the year 2020, America will start to crumble. Basically, there'll be attacks, there'll be wars, there'll be all this stuff, and America will be put into, I think he says 10 or 12 states or whatever they're going to be called after all that stuff. And when I'm watching this video, this was a good 3 years ago, and it still to this day, like every time I hear something like what you're telling me there, I'm like, well, that's sending alarm bells ringing to everything that I've known. And even, if you want to go into the New World Order theory, which basically says that some organization, and I believe it could be the UN, it could be the WHO, I don't know. I think I believe it'll be the UN. And then even with the UK, I could talk about what's happening in the UK with the demonization of the monarch, the Queen and her son and all that, what's going on. And I think that the whole concept of government will disappear, and it'll be, each state or in the UK will be split up into what will be called counties, which we already have in place. But it won't be like Scotland, England, Ireland, Wales. Scotland will be made up of 4 or 5 counties. So you've got Aberdeenshire, Lanarkshire, and each one of them will have one person that the UN, talks back and forth to and gives there'll be, if there's rations or you guys haven't met your climate change quota, so you guys will be penalized and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not too big into that side of things, but I totally see it, especially with, what's scaring me is with Nancy Pelosi. Has she gone to visit Taiwan? Because I've always feared that when China get involved, we could see World War III. I'm intrigued to know what you think about that.
World War III, I think we're in it. I think we've been in it for a few years. And I think really what's just going to come about, I think there's going to be conflict, but I think it's just going to establish the bifurcation in powers. So Western powers will be their own thing, and the Eastern powers will be their own thing. And the Eastern powers will be more influential than the Western powers are currently.
Yep.
And I also believe that there are people that could live their lives relatively unaffected by a military conflict in World War III. Nobody knows exactly where it's going to go down. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to say to live this place or go here and hide out here. You don't know until it happens. But, I do know that there were people in the Civil War that didn't even know a civil war was going on in America. So it's not just like everybody is in total chaos and pandemonium. That isn't necessarily true. I'm a big advocate for people localizing their supply chains, starting homesteads, becoming more self-sufficient, working in your community, being a valuable person in your community. And just by starting homesteads, I don't mean to be a full-time homesteader. That isn't for everybody. But I think everybody, if you can, have a couple chickens. And by if you can, I mean if you have your own place to have your chickens. Like right now, I live in an apartment. I can't have chickens here. But the next best thing you can do is help out your local farmer. That's exactly what I do. So, there's a lot of options that people can do in order to mitigate the fallout to come and then build back. Because this isn't the first Great Reset. This isn't the first Great Awakening. These are all cyclical. This happened many of times throughout history. How many times? I don't know. But we've experienced them before. And just by studying history, you can learn how to navigate Great Resets.
Yep. Well, honestly, Bud, you sound like a man of my own heart, especially when you mentioned there about the homesteading and growing your own food. That's the kind of stuff that I think we all arrive at that point at some point in our lives when you go down these rabbit holes. And I mean, what I find funny is when you listen to some right-leaning podcasts, they sound conspiracy theorists. It's become so normal, and that should be a telltale sign that things aren't right. So I've thoroughly enjoyed being on your show, and I'll reach out to you. I'll follow you on my other platform, and if you want to come on as a guest on Friendly Differences sometime, hit us up. I'll message you after I jump off here. But
sounds good,
been
man.
Great chatting with you.
Likewise, man. Peace. All right, that was a really good chat. He's a really good dude. All right, one more person, and then I'm done. Hey, how's it going? It's going well. Yourself?
Not too bad, man. I was just scrolling through lives, killing time, and I seen that you had an interesting array of topics to discuss. I don't know if you've already discussed it or not, but I was curious on the United States will break up.
Yeah, that's actually what we were just discussing briefly. So, I think that the United States will break up, probably in our lifetime. We are already getting signals of that, I believe, and we have been for quite some time. The country becomes increasingly divided. What does it mean to be an American? Nobody really knows anymore. And there is no, as I've already stated, no solid culture. Additionally, we see states starting to actively rebel against the federal government in certain ways. Ron DeSantis getting a George Soros funded state attorney out of office for not following the laws. And then we also have Carrie Lake talking about finishing the wall despite what Biden would say. So we're just having more antagonism towards the federal government. And states, I believe, will want to secede. We already see movements happening in California. It's called Cali Exit. We see Texic, which is Texas exiting the union. We have states in the eastern half of the country, like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, if I'm not mistaken, forming a coalition to also secede. So a lot of states do not like what the federal government is doing. They don't feel as if they really belong to America. And
I completely agree with you. I'm glad on your take and your analysis. I see a lot of parallels between the fall of the Roman Empire, who was also a republic, and where we are in the United States today. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of corruption at the federal level, a lot of distrust in our intelligence agencies because of their obvious bias. And I think that's driving a lot of the divide at the state level, along with some of the spent tax monies, how it's being spent, where it's being spent, and an outright attack on the Constitution for both sides of the political aisle with their own agendas. So
Yep.
I'm with you on that, man. Completely with you. What's your take on DeSantis and Kerry Lake?
Not a fan of DeSantis. He's another shill for the Star of David tribe. And then Kerry Lake, I don't think anybody biologically designed as her should ever be in political office.
So what side of the political aisle do you fall on if you had to put yourself? I hate to have anyone put themselves
No,
in a
it's all
box.
good. Definitely right. Definitely right.
Definitely right. Yeah, me too. Well, I did the compass test, and it had me a slightly right libertarian. So,
Okay.
like, socially, I was very leaning left. Economically and government power, I was more right. So that's where it had me at on the political compass. I've never even heard of a slightly right libertarian, but according to where I fell with historical figures, I was right in line with George Washington.
Nice. Yeah, I'm not. I am not libertarian at all. I'm very right leaning when it comes to social society. I would consider myself a Christian nationalist. I'm very sympathetic to Sharia law.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think me and you are probably more alike than not. DeSantis, though, I see. It's like we're put in a situation right now with the current political climate. You have to choose between the lesser of two evils in every single election, and the way the left is going in this country. And some of the things they're pushing for, like I used to be able to, in my younger years, I'm 38, I'm not that old, but I'm 38. But I used to be able to vote across political lines just based on policy. And we're at a point now in this country where you don't even have that as a viable option. You're either extreme left, extreme right, or you're someone like Tulsi Gabbard, who I think is probably the only moderate Democrat in the party right now. So it's like, yeah, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's a lot of things I like about Ron DeSantis, especially during the era of COVID. But there's some shit that he does that I'm just like, come on, dude, that's slightly fascist in some cases. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that nobody. It's a lost cause on the national level. I just recommend everybody, if you want to be political, local. That's where you have the bigger
that's where
voice.
you make the difference. That's where you make the difference. A lot of people don't realize that. They think that these federal elections are going to have the biggest outcome in your day-to-day life, and the reality is local elections is where it's at.
100%. Yeah, I mean, that's if you want to be political, right? I mean, you can choose to be apolitical. That's on you. But if you do want to participate, local is where you should be.
Yeah. The problem is this federal overreach that we're seeing, man. That the DOJ is, depending on who's in office, that could go either way. Look at how Eric Holder conducted himself, and then now look at Merrick Garland, the way he's conducting himself.
Right.
I am so glad he did not make it to the Supreme Court. So glad he did not make it to the Supreme Court. That would have been atrocious for the country.
Yeah, probably. I'm glad who Trump put in the Supreme Court. I align with them a lot. Well, at least in what they've done recently for their major major decisions. Recently, I agree with them. But I think that I'm very sympathetic to Sharia law, man. I don't think that DeSantis, I don't think any Republican is going as far as they need to go.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I get it, though. You got to watch what you say on these damn TikToks. I get it. Trust me. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Well, let me see what else. Oh, groupthink is better than individualism. That's an interesting take. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so let me clarify. The more I've discussed it with people, I think better wording would be it's more effective than individualism. You can get more shit done with groupthink than you can being an individual.
I agree with that to an extent, unless the groupthink is what we're seeing on the far left right now. If that's the groupthink, I don't want to be a part of that.
Yes, so it's a spectrum, and everybody is a part of some form of groupthink, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah, I agree. So are you a Trump supporter?
No, I think he's hilarious. I really appreciate him. I do. I love his rhetoric. I have nothing bad to say about his rhetoric, but he lacked courage during 2020 for multiple reasons. He didn't. I don't know what I can say, but mathematically, things did not make sense. He should have done more and been more of. I get it. It's hard though. I'm not in that position. And then secondly, his position on the whole cough and sniffles, I think, was horrible. The lockdowns, all of it, horrible. Operation Warp Speed, horrible.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I wasn't a fan of some of the decisions he made. I think he let the bureaucrats take the lead there, and we saw a demise of the country as a result of that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, though, his foreign policy, in my view, and I'm very big into foreign policy, probably more so than domestic policy, and I think that's where the left is losing they've got such a narrow focus on the things that are happening here stateside, and they're putting people in positions of power who get to make foreign decisions, and they are not engaged enough to understand the implications or the ramifications for that. Like, I mean, we've seen Russia just form an economic and military alliance with India and Turkey, or excuse me, not India and Turkey, but Iran and Turkey, and China, kind of being the puppet master in that alliance. Then we see what's going on between Russia and Ukraine, and we see what's going on between China and Taiwan right now. And everyone here is worried about gender fluidity. It's like, what? It's mind blowing to me. And but his foreign policy was sound. It was amongst the best foreign policy I've seen since Reagan. Probably better in some cases, especially the way he challenged NATO and the United Nations. I thought Nikki Haley did a phenomenal job representing us at the United Nations. She was stern. She stood on her principles and America's founding principles, and she had no problem looking dictators in the eye and telling them what it was. So I really like his foreign policy. I think he had some good domestic policy, but I think that he allowed Twitter and his rhetoric in some cases to overshadow his policy. And, with the left-stream media, otherwise known as the mainstream media, he gave them ammunition. If he would have just stuck to policy and stayed off of Twitter and not always feel the need to punch back, I think they would have had no choice but to report on his policies as opposed to what he tweeted.
No, I think he did a good job. He wanted attention. And like I said, I think the rhetoric was great. It was great. He's a brilliant marketer. That's why he's that's why he's at where he's at.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Carrie Lake, did you see? She turned every single county in her favor in Arizona. Not most of them, every single one.
Yeah, I did. And once again, I don't think that's a win for Republicans at all. She should not be in office.
What is? Is it because of the whole voter fraud push?
No. Anybody with her biological design is not meant for office. It is a male position.
I got you.
It is a male position.
Yeah, so I tend to agree with that. I got to be very careful with what I say here for obvious reasons, but I 110% agree with that. We could almost draw a line, and it would almost run parallel with its dips and peaks from the 50s to now, in regards to what specifically you're referring to.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see a decline in our stance around the world.
Yes.
Almost match that line all the way through to today. So I'm right there with you. Yes. That's about the most politically correct way I could say it. And so my point of
yeah, and it's destroying the military, as somebody rightfully points out. John Hardy, 51, correctly points out.
Absolutely. Dude, check out. I mean, I don't know if you're big into following people, but check out some of my stuff. I think we're more aligned than you might think. But I actually just did a video on this. I don't know if you saw it or not. They're doing they had a drag show.
Yes.
At one of our military bases.
Yep.
Right. And I did a video showing from Gettysburg, a photo that was taken during Gettysburg, and it showed some pretty badass guys representing our military. And then I did one from today with this woke military bullshit.
Right.
And it goes into explain the difference in values and principles and how we conduct ourselves as opposed to, let's say, China or Russia. and how that's ultimately going to be a part of our demise. It's a really in-depth video. I'm trying to like summarize it here to explain to you. But,
yeah, it's all good, man.
yeah,
I'll check it out.
I perfectly line with where you're going and what your thought is, man. I got to be careful, man. You know how that goes on social media these days.
I do for sure. I just gave you a follow, so I'll check it out.
Yep, same. I just followed you as well.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Well, I don't know if you got anyone else in the box.
I do not. And you were going to be the last one anyways, so.
All right. Well, I'll let you get back to your day, brother. I appreciate you having me on. I'll certainly join again.
All right, man. Sounds good.
All right, man. Bye.
See ya. All right. So that was we ended it off pretty well. It was a good stream overall. I thank you guys for all tuning in. And yeah, so if you want to follow and support MOT Media everywhere pretty much. MOT Today 1. It's another channel that Mick runs, and then MOT Sports. So yeah, all right, guys. Much love. Peace.